Right. Good evening and a warm welcome to the Rushcliffe Borough Council's meeting. I would like to remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the local authorities' executive arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information, England, Regulation 2012, other people may film, record, tweet, or blog from this meeting. The use of any such images or sound recordings is not under the Council's control. Any councillor who wishes to speak should raise their hand and your request will be noted. You will be asked to speak in turn by me, and then you may turn on your microphone. Once you have finished speaking, would you please turn off your microphone? In respect of voting, when asked by me, councillors should raise their hand to indicate how they wish to vote. If a roll call is requested, councillors' names will be called out as previously referred to. A councillor may raise a point of order or make a personal explanation at any time by raising their hand, and I will hear them immediately, and my ruling on the matter will be final. During a debate, if I stand up, any councillor speaking at the time must stop and sit down. Everyone in the room must be silent. We will be having a short 5-minute break at around 8:30 between agenda items if it looks as though the meeting is going to go on right up until the last minute. Okay, thank you. Oh, drink. Right, okay. I would like to now invite Reverend Bronwyn Gamble to lead us in a moment of reflection. You may stand. Is your just switch, press the right hand. Thank you. Okay.
It has been said that the British Isles has weather, not climate. And we all know that talking about the weather is a great pastime for us. I don't know about you, but I look at the weather forecast last thing at night to see what it's likely to be like in the morning. And when I get up in the morning, I check to see if it's still the same. And that presupposes that I place my trust in my meteorologists. I do this because, with the exception of the sort of weather we're having just at the moment, and that we've had recently, namely the heavy rains and the winds, I usually go out for a bike ride. That's my daily exercise, about 40 minutes around the village of Tollerton where I live. I go accordingly attired. On my journey, I see people walking their dogs, delivering or collecting newspapers, runners and walkers, folk in their cars waiting patiently for the traffic lights to change on Melton Road, and others standing at the bus stop waiting for a ride, all placing their trust in different people, organisations and equipment. Apart from a brief good morning as I pass by and sometimes startle certain people, and with the background hum of the traffic on the Melton Road, sometimes punctuated by the sound of emergency service sirens, I enjoy the quietness, which gives me an opportunity to reflect on past days and the day ahead. So weather-wise this morning was just right for my ride. Dry, no wind, not too hot and not too cold. As I came to the last leg of my circuit, turning into my road, facing west and on a slight incline. The vista before me was one of a bright, clear blue sky with a minimum of wispy cirrus cloud. It was beautiful, inspiring, and promising. And it brought to my mind Psalm 121 from the Old Testament, which opens with the words, "I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come?" That verse raises a question about trust and faith for each of us individually and as a community. In whom or in what do we place our trust and faith? Whether this is about personal, family, or collegiate relationships, what or whom we believe is personal to each of us. Many people have found this psalm to be helpful, especially in difficult times and situations such as bereavement, disaster, and disappointment. It's a psalm of trust and promise for those who want to listen. Allow me now to read it to you in full, if I may. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not suffer your foot to stumble. He who watches over you will not sleep. Behold, he who keeps watch over Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand, so that the sun shall not strike you by day, neither the moon by night. The Lord shall keep you from all evil. It is he who shall keep your soul. The Lord shall keep watch over your going out and your coming in from this time forth forevermore. So in whom or in what do we place our trust and faith? The weather forecast is helpful, but not always right. So I would rather place my trust in God who is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bronwyn. That was very thoughtful. Thank you. You may. I will read that in a minute, if I may, Bronwyn. Shall I read it now? Okay, thank you. Yes, you might need it. I had a bit of difficulty carrying everything I needed to in here. I hadn't got a hand left for a brolly, so I got a bit damp. Right, well, Caris has come back in now, so I'll turn to Gemma. Apologies for absence. Have we any apologies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Calvert.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Have we any declarations of interest? Yes.
Got declaration of interest for item number 11A.
Thank you. Any others? No? Right. Okay. Item number 3, to approve a correct record of the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 13th of July 2023. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Yes, I'll second the minutes.
Keep switching it on and off, and it's the wrong way round. Right. All in favour of the minutes and being correct. Yep. Those against, anyone against? Has a problem? No. Abstentions? No. So I declare that the vote is carried. Thank you very much. Right, it comes to the Mayor's announcements. I have to say that the Mayor is a lot busier than I thought I would be. I must have done 40 odd visits and meeting of people so far already this year. But, you know, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So I'll just mention a few. It'll only take about half an hour. So I met some Korean veterans who'd been in the Korean War, which is perhaps a war that we sometimes forget about. And they came to the parlour and we gave them a cup of tea and a bun. It was lovely. And it was interesting hearing the things that they went through during those times, a lot of which I hadn't realised that they're actually in the trenches, and one chap was in the trenches for a whole year. I couldn't believe it. So that was pretty moving. But then we had some wonderful weather, and there was the cinema in the park. There was also the cricket, which I went to, which was quite good, and I suddenly found myself really quite interested in cricket, and I'm now going there with a friend for one day things, and for the hundreds ones as well, which are quite exciting. And I'm going on Saturday as well. So, it's all very interesting, and I'm finding myself interested in things that I hadn't realised that I was. So it's good. I've done Merchant Navy Day, shop mobility on the West Bridgeford. It's 20 years old, and Nigel Cutts, Kate Cutts' husband, was one of the first people there 20 years ago. Marie Males was one as well, councillor Marie Males. And some of the people that were there, you know, that I knew, all, you know, 20 years ago, were still enthusiastic and still are now. One of the best things I have to say was the Scarecrow weekend. It was hot. I was hot. The Scarecrows must have been hot. And so was Councillor Cumberland, rather hot, because she followed me around. I think I was there over 3 hours. I was exhausted, but they did give me a cup of tea. So that was very welcome. The dodgy bit was I had to choose who'd won second and third. And I tell you, when you've got 70 scarecrows to look at, it can be quite difficult. But I would like to thank Councillor Cumberland for steering me around all these scarecrows. We've had various things. There's been the civic dinner only on Friday. There was 180 people there. It was the most that we'd had for a long time. And it was all about volunteering. That was really worthwhile. I've had a 70th wedding anniversary. Well, not me personally, but I went to a couple. They're 90. He's 91, 92, and he still does his own garden. Puts me to shame. And when his son went round a couple of weeks ago, he was digging out all the in the roof and all the gutters. So hey, we can still do this. We've got a lot of years to come, haven't we, all of us? I have got an afternoon tea on Thursday, on the 28th. I have a few scones, and I'm doing Rocky Road and all sorts of other luscious things. So if any of you wish to come, I have got a few people coming. Thank you very much. A few of you. Prosecco. So just let me know if you wish to come. But so far, I've been enjoying it, and I hope I will still say that at the end of this meeting. So, and I'm still smiling as well. Okay, thank you. Right. Next on the agenda are the leaders' announcement. Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. I've got three items I'd like to raise. It's amazing news that we were announced winners for the APSI Service Awards. APSI is the Association for Public Sector Excellence. In the category, the entry was Notts Green Rewards, helping Nottinghamshire and Nottingham City residents take action to reduce their carbon footprint and help tackle climate change. So we did very well to win. 9 in total were shortlisted, which was the biggest out of the 11 categories. So congratulations to all that were involved in winning that award. Secondly, well, staying with the green theme, the borough were awarded 2 green flags this year. Firstly, for the 17th year running, Rushcliffe Country Park, and secondly, for the first time, Sharphill Woods. The Green Flag Awards acknowledge the best parks in the country. So congratulations to all involved in that achievement, and also the support of the 2 Friends of groups, Friends of Rushcliffe Country Park and Friends of Sharphill Woods, who support both those locations. And thirdly, want to just highlight again and just to encourage nominations for the Celebrating Rushcliffe Awards, which is the Borough Council's own community award scheme, which recognise the amazing work carried out in our communities by voluntary groups, sports clubs and businesses. And the deadline for those nominations is the 15th of October. So please do encourage any community groups, businesses, organisations that you know to put in those applications. They've still got, about 3 weeks to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Chief Executive's announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a short admin point from me today. You should all have 2 slips on your desks. Please, can you fill them out before you leave this evening, so we don't have to chase you afterwards. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. We come now to item 7, which is the citizens' questions. A question has been received from Terry Galloway, and Terry Galloway has indicated that he will be attending the meeting to ask his questions. Could he stand up, please, and come and sit there? You switch your microphone on by the right-hand button.
Hello. I must apologise for using my phone. I've not printed anything out and I've just rushed here, so I'm really sorry. But thank you. I'm really grateful to Councillor Garland for bringing the Treating Care Experience as a Protected Characteristic motion to this council today. Rushcliffe Council, in partnership with Nottinghamshire County Council and the other 6 districts, created the first joint offer for care leavers. So you guys should be proud. That's the first offer in the whole country. By the time I'd left care myself, I'd lived in over 100 places. We were left with no voice. But in the end, I did make a life for myself, despite the early trauma. I was, however, at a funeral with my sister, who had just lost her children to the care system. She was very ill at the time and addicted to drugs and alcohol, and she was in a really, really bad place. And she said to me, "Terry, I don't want to die." And when your sister says something like that to you, what do you say? So I tried to encourage her. I told her that we'd use our trauma to change the care system, so that others that came after us didn't have to go through what we'd been through. So, trying to give her hope, giving hope that our voices would be heard in the end. So we made a promise to change the care system, and never got that hope that she really did deserve. She never had voice, and her life, like many other care experienced people, care experienced people are 70% more likely to die prematurely than anybody else. That's 20 years off their lifespan. According to the independent review of children's social care, every child that enters the care system costs the state £1.2 million during their lifetime in fiscal, social and economical costs, yet outcomes are so poor.
Excuse me, we've only got 5 minutes for the answer as well. So if you could get round to the question, please, and then you can.
No problem. So what I'm saying is that
Thank you.
we need to do more for our care experienced people. The question that I have for the leader is, do you accept that the voice of care experienced people should be heard in all policy decisions and service design?
Thank you for that. I'm sorry I had to cut you off, but we're on a time
No problem.
limit today. It is a difficult subject. Thank you. I believe Councillor Clark.
Oh, Terry, can you switch to
Madam Mayor, I'll ask Councillor Wheeler to answer on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Scully, for your question and sharing your experience with us this evening. The Borough Council does understand the impact of being care can have on some residents, which is why we can undertake when considering significant policy and operational shifts. So we absolutely make sure we go through that process to consider the impact on everything we do. We're also going to discuss this more detail under item 11. So hopefully you'll get some more additional information there after we complete it twice. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We go on now to item 8, petitions, and no petitions have been received. So 9, item 9, business from the last council meeting. I should just explain that the first substantive item of business for the meeting is to consider the items that carried forward from the July council meeting that there had been no time to address on the night. I think we were about 2 minutes from 10:30 when we had to finish. So, to answer questions submitted by councillors under standing orders on paragraph 433, I turn to Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rushcliffe Borough Council has spent £9,597 of taxpayer money applying for and attending the MJ Achievement Awards in London. Do you consider this to be an appropriate use of taxpayer money during the cost of living crisis?
I'd like to invite Councillor Clark to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, the short answer is yes, I do. It is 5 years since Rushcliffe Borough Council last attended the MJ Achievement Awards in London. This time, the council was the only district council shortlisted as a finalist for the Local Authority of the Year award, alongside 5 unitaries and counties. So as we were the only district council being shortlisted, I think it's safe to claim that that infers that we are certainly the best district council in the country at the moment. And this is a magnificent achievement just to be on the shortlist, Madam Mayor. The awards are part of the sector's work to promote best practice and continuous improvement. And the shortlisting does reflect well on councillors of all parties and the officers who deliver the council's priorities. There is a cost to entering and attending such events, but the benefit, Madam Mayor, to workforce morale and recruitment is pretty much immeasurable. The profile and high esteem in which the council is held is definitely the reward. And the morale, the boost that all the staff and workforce get from that accolade of being shortlisted is absolutely immense. And it does mean that when recruitment takes place, applicants more likely to, well, they were shortlisted as for Council of the Year. I want to apply for a job there. We do not budget to enter such awards, and it is due to the excellent running of the council we are in a position to be able to afford this from in-year budget efficiencies. In the context of the council's gross budget of £39.7 million, this amounts to 0.02%. And this council has the lowest bandy council tax in Nottinghamshire and is within the lowest 25% in the country. Thus, we play our part to assist those struggling with the challenge of living costs, keeping Rushcliffe taxes low and continuing to provide excellent services to our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Birch, do you have a supplementary question, please? Yeah. Would you like to
Yes, I do. Thank you.
ask it?
Thank you for your answer. How do you justify to taxpayers spending £954 on hotels for 3 people during the application, which is £318 per person, and also taking a non-councillor, former leader Simon Robinson, to the lavish awards ceremony, which had food, alcohol, and was guest hosted by Hugh Edwards? Thank you.
Birch, which one would you like answering? The first
The
or the second?
£954, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those expenses would have been in the meaning that it would be the best way of attending in order to make the presentation and in order to make sure they could present in the best possible way. So those costs involved are a perfectly beneficial cost, which...
Okay. Yes, Councillor Birch.
Sorry, how many questions are we having, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Clark. Thank you.
All right, back to the original supplementary. That is the cost involved in making sure that the presenters can present the case in the best possible way. And as you can tell, that resulted in the shortlisting. So, and also the benefits that I have highlighted. So I think that it was a very good and beneficial exercise. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Walker, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Appointment of the council's leader and his relationship with the chair of scrutiny. How will this council ensure there's transparency and rigor around our scrutiny process?
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. This council prides itself on the integrity follow, and that includes members' full engagement with scrutiny. As you asked about the process, please bear with me while I go with that in some detail. Proposed topics for scrutiny are put forward for consideration by councillors or officers. The definition of the scope of the item for scrutiny, as well as the lines of inquiry and the driving factors behind the request, must be clearly set out. These factors are firstly given consideration by officers. Is this a legitimate item for scrutiny? Would the inquiry add value? Is it achievable, and are there resources to deliver it? Only if the proposed scrutiny request meets these very exacting standards, and I'm absolutely sure no one here is suggesting that officers of this council would be anything other than entirely proper and robust in their analysis of those put forward, will it go to the corporate overview group. It will then be published along with the agenda. The overview group is quarterly and comprises 7 members, chairs and vice chairs of the scrutiny groups. The chair is independent of those groups and does not have an executive role. 3 members of the group are from opposition parties. Members from either side feel that the process being followed is anything other than transparent and rigorous. They'll be the first to speak up. At each meeting, the proposed item will be discussed, the proposer can speak to the item, and the officers will explain their recommendation. The meetings are open to the public and available on YouTube and unminuted. The vast majority of the actual scrutiny work is undertaken by the scrutiny group, supported by senior officers, and are open to the public and available on YouTube. The executive model of governance that we follow is clear that scrutiny should provide checks and balances to the executive and should hold it to account. We implement and follow the legislation fully. The current chair of the overview group held this role for a number of years before standing down only to undertake the role of mayor. The decision to recommend Councillor Cumberlack to the role was agreed by all members of the Cabinet, the Conservative group, and the full council at the annual meeting in May, at which point no objections to the appointment were raised. And you know, individuals, Madam Mayor, even married ones and ones in partnerships, have agency. They can and do act independently of their partners. There's a kind of uncomfortable insinuation here that an individual, more often than not a woman, is right to take up a role for which they are suitably qualified and in which they have demonstrated their professionalism and ability, should be prevented from doing so by a role held by their partner. I very much doubt Councillor Walker, for example, would welcome having her capacity to undertake a role compromised or her integrity and professionalism questioned because of any position Councillor Galt might hold. Councillor Cumberlack has been in the role now for 4 months, and as far as I'm aware, no issues have been raised. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Walcott, have you a supplementary question?
I do, yeah. I just want to follow up on that point. My objection is to the appointment of the leader rather than the chair of scrutiny, actually. So that's in that full council. That's where we voted against that leadership. And if you read the question properly, it's very much focused on the leadership rather than chair of scrutiny. So has the leader and the council sought advice from the LGA as to whether this relationship within a council is advisable for true scrutiny?
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Yes, there is a misunderstanding over the question. That isn't what I anticipated. What I understood from your question. I will need to respond to you in writing as to whether direct advice has been taken from the LGA with regard to that appointment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Weir. The Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Scheme Action Plan states that there is already a Rushcliffe Youth Forum. What is the remit for this group? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. So the Rushcliffe Youth Forum is led by the County Council, and they will community, and they can often engage with elected members as well as other members of the community, depending on how they see fit to progress. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, please, Councillor Plant?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Wheeler. I did think that was the forum that you're referring to. But in March 2023, Cabinet agreed to support the existing Rushcliffe Youth Forum for a 2-year period to help expand membership, increase awareness and increase opportunities for collaboration. Can I ask what form that support will take or has taken? And I mean by that, I mean as regards officer support, cabinet member support, councillor involvement, etc. And what actions have been taken since the cabinet meeting in March? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pant. So we are giving our support. So we've got Charlotte, who's sat back there in there working away. So Charlotte's already met with the team behind the forum and the new chairperson who was elected a couple of months ago, I believe. Charlotte's not throwing things at me, so I'm going to be correct with that one. And so we'll obviously let the chairman settle in and decide how they're going to participate with the group taking forward. I'm more than happy to meet them on any occasion and say no. So we'll keep getting that support. Obviously, now they've just reset with a new chairperson in place. We'll obviously see press for the next couple of years, but we're absolutely committed to engaging with the forum as we set out in the cabinet report and as went through scrutiny in January this year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the end of those questions that were particularly from last time. We go on to item 10 now, approval of the scrutiny annual reports. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Turning to page 25, item 10, I have pleasure in moving the recommendation to endorse the work undertaken by the scrutiny groups, a very important part of the work of the council to provide challenge as critical friend, but also as policy development as well. I think policy development is equally as important as challenging and being a critical friend. The reports are of each scrutiny group are attached, and perhaps after it's been seconded, you may like to invite each of the chairmen of the scrutiny groups to highlight their activities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to second the report and I'll reserve my right to speak. That's what I was trying to say. Reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
So I go over now to ask them to speak.
Okay.
Okay. Right, I shall be asking the chairman of the scrutiny groups. Yes, I know. Thank you. I have it here. I'm about to say it. Thank you. Councillor Wheeler, would you like to speak again, please?
If I'm allowed to, Madam Mayor, absolutely. So as the previous chairman of the corporate overview group, I'm happy to be with the annual report in front of you today. I'd like to thank all the officers who helped support the group, especially Charlotte as the lead officer. One key highlight I would like to pick out really is the difference we made to invite councillors to come present their scrutiny matrix items. To me, that made a real difference. I don't mind saying on more than one occasion, I was turning around my opinion on the items by the councillor in front of me, absolutely putting across their point of view. And so thank you to everyone who put those matrices in and came to speak on the cold Tuesday night to convince us on why we should take them forwards, and especially Councillor Thomas. I know came to, I think, probably every meeting I think to put them forwards, and I do appreciate the time and effort you put into that. I'd just like to say, as well as someone who was on scrutiny for over half my time as a councillor and chairman for the last few years, just to say how important scrutiny is. And I really hope that every member really plays their part. We've seen how many councillors can make a real difference on scrutiny. Councillor Thomas is a testament to that as an officer councillor as well. So just ask everyone to really take full part of scrutiny and to really throw themselves into it, because it can make a real difference to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to make clear, these are the chairman for last.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Governance Scrutiny Group, which I chaired last year, has responsibility for and approves the Council's finances, approach to risk, as well as other corporate issues. And the work of governance scrutiny cannot be understated. Despite an incredibly intensive and challenging year, the group did manage to consider the full programme of areas to be scrutinised during the 22-23 year. With a robust governance framework, we make better decisions and judgments, and as a result are more accountable to our community. Clearly, the areas considered are often technical and may appear, and excuse my expression here, quite dry. But it's very important that we scrutinise the council's financial statements, the annual governance statement, that we review our capital and treasury investments, our monies, where they're being used, and also the internal and external auditors are satisfied and have assurance that we have the right and adequate internal controls and processes. And crucially, given everything that's going on in the world of local government at the moment, whether it's impact of increased demand, rising inflation, or the cost of living crisis, we effectively manage risk, scrutinising risk practices and the risk register. Poor governance leads to the unedifying world of Section 114 notices, which we have all seen in recent headlines. I'm glad to say we're not one of them. The report highlights the key areas considered throughout the year, which you've no doubt read in the papers when I was chairman, and also comments on progress in the various aforementioned areas that I've just been through, which I've no doubt Councillor Edivine, who is now the new governance chair, is currently enjoying wrestling with, and I wish him and the group well for this year. I'd also like to thank Councillor Penny Gowland for her support as Vice Chair last year, as well as the other group members and audit partners that have attended the meetings, and of course the officers, and in particular Peter Linfield and Sarah Whitaker, who continue with the very important role advising and supporting the group and answering any questions they may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Community Scrutiny Group, where to begin? It's such a wide-ranging scrutiny group which looks at very many different aspects that touch all the lives of our residents around the borough. And as you can see from the document that's been presented tonight, many different aspects, but just wanting to pick a couple of them. Kind of we looked at the sports development in Rushcliffe, where we looked at future activity and well-being for residents, but then from that we supported 36 international and 77 national level athletes. 27 coaches have been coached through the scholarship scheme, but then also looking at with Safer Hearts for defibrillators and external units at sports venues. And then to the other end of actually how we engage with the communities, how we interact as a borough council through the external communication strategy and customer access strategy. So that's kind of led at the possibility of a new TikTok channel for the borough council and how that could work. To then also having a call waiting number. So when residents ring up on the phone to customer services, they get a number of where they are in the queue, so they know how long to wait. And also, like, then we still have the face-to-face element with our residents, where we've got the free contact points have still been retained. I'd just like to thank the Vice Chair, Councillor Jenny Murray, if that could be passed on to her for all her support last year. And also to all the councillors who were on scrutiny, community scrutiny last year as well, for all their invaluable input into the discussions that often be quite meaty and often lengthy as by their nature. Also like to thank the lead officer, Darryl Birch, for all his support for the group, and also to all the other officers who have come to their sat with us and done presenting, and then also had to then take all councillors' questions and interrogation and that from on the agenda items. But also would like to thank Democratic Services for all their support as well with the minutes and all the documentation.
Thank you. And Councillor Clark, who was the chairman last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, chairing the growth and development two interesting areas of operation in the council. Topics, some of them related more to business in terms of growth, and others related more to our functions as a planning authority. So we looked at conservation areas, and this is the follow-up to a previous item on conservation areas. sewerage infrastructure and discharge. And this was a good example of where you invite outside organisation representatives to come in and have a discussion with the scrutiny group as well. The COVID business recovery, and this certainly scrutinised the way in which the council supported recovery from the COVID pandemic. Thank you. I kept wanting to say endemic. Pandemic. And it illustrated, and the scrutiny group was told how quickly our council officers responded to requests for grants, etc., to support people to keep businesses and other organisations running. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, looking at that, where that supported, again, organisations and businesses, and then down to the real business of looking at hedges and hedgerows, which is still a very important part of the work, and then things like updating on the very large development we have at Fareham, 3,500 houses, where we need to be ensuring that this is developed in the correct way. So I do want to thank the officers for all their support to the scrutiny group, for supporting us in the process, but also a lot of research would have gone into the topics, I know, as well as organising those outside visitors that I mentioned earlier on to represent the stakeholders. And then to thank all the members, my Vice Chairman, Councillor Butler, and all the other members that took part in that scrutiny process, a very worthwhile activity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Right, well, we'll now open it up, but first of all, go to Councillor Gowland, who is going to speak on behalf of the Labour group.
Thanks very much. So thank you for the reports. We'd like to thank the officers for all their work on scrutiny. We'd like to thank the leadership for and the chairs of the committees for working with us. We'd particularly like to thank the officers who've been up late for corporate overview, and to the companies and agencies that supported corporate overview. There's one thing we'd like to ask, is that in future maybe issues that have been brought to scrutiny but haven't been accepted for scrutiny could be listed, so we're aware of issues that have been raised but haven't been taken to scrutiny. So when something's brought forward but then it's rejected for some reason, if some sort of title of that could be put on the reports, that would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richard Mallender. Yes. No?
Some of them you might need to just use your card again. They
Yeah,
seem to have
just flash your
rejected
card
some of
over
them.
the left-hand side.
There we go.
Hey, thank you.
Baffled by the new technology. I really shouldn't be. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you again to the committee chairs for their words, and for the officers for their work that's been done on the excellent scrutiny that we have here. Just like to say, I completely agree with what Councillor Gowland was just saying there. It's always useful to have a log of all the different items that have been proposed to scrutiny and whether they have been approved or whether scrutinised or not. It's just a very handy thing for us all to have as reference, and probably for residents to be able to look at as well and see what's been discussed and not discussed. So perhaps we could come back on that later on. Just to cover a couple of the issues that are particularly close to my heart, and obviously I'm on the community scrutiny, so they were very much in Councillor Williams' remit. I think one is obviously the access agreement that was discussed for the with the Canals and Rivers Trust, and there's very much discussion there about the possible extension of the work those could do, which would be a great benefit of the borough, not just the wards that the canal flows through. We do want to keep it flowing through and extend the water to cover far more of the length of the canal than it currently does. We went through a whole lot of things through the year. Another one that was very close to my heart was obviously the carbon management plan. A great deal of work to be done there. Some fantastic work being done already to reduce the carbon footprint of the council, and ultimately the partners that we work with, and indeed the borough as a whole, including all our residents. That's something that we really do have to keep working on and make sure that we stick to our targets. Also, we have the environment policy as well, where we've been looking at all kinds of things, that including the I think hedgerows has already been mentioned, so extending the coverage of hedgerows throughout the borough as well, which will help us with our biodiversity net gain, offsetting the developments that we have around the borough as well, and increasing the amount of wildlife and green space that we have and we need to preserve and protect in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas, just out of my line of sight.
Thank you very much,
on
Madam Mayor. Sorry, I'll just move a bit and then maybe I'm back in your line. I'd just like to thank and acknowledge the improvements that have been made to the scrutiny process over the last few years, and just hope that this will continue. Really, we've had one suggestion tonight, and the responsiveness and the work of the officers is appreciated in this. I'd just like to thank for that, really, and we will be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak before I go to Councillor Brennan? No? Okay. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I have nothing further to add.
You reserve the right to speak. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to respond, and I'm grateful to Councillor Thomas for her comments, positive, supportive comments regarding the process, and the comments that were made about list of items that didn't go forward. Yeah, happy to take that away and find the best way of achieving that, so it's meaningful, so everybody can see and note how it's proceeded. So I don't see any problem with that at all. We'll take that away. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, well, we'll go to the vote then. Thank you. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. Carter, okay. Anyone against? No. Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, vote's carried. Thank you. The vote is carried. Thank you. Right. Now we go on to the notice of motions that are submitted under Standing Order paragraph 4.38. And we come to the first one, which is Councillor Gowland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is this working? Yeah, thanks. Terry gave an introduction effectively to this motion earlier on, and as he described, I didn't know he was going to do that, but as he described, people leaving care will often be carrying with them a huge amount of trauma. But even if they're lucky enough to leave care without that trauma, they will still be likely to be leaving care without the infrastructure that most young people take out into the world. So as people go into the world and they have, their car breaks down or they need to hang curtains, they can go to their families and ask. People living care are missing all that community to support them in many cases, as well as carrying huge amounts of trauma. We all know this. All the people in this room, I think, know this. And we know that people leaving care need to have extra support. So the purpose of this motion is very simple. It's a very simple motion. And it's to ensure that as we go forward, the council looks at its policies and looks at the procedures people living care are considered and their needs are considered in general. There are a few points I'd like to make. First of all, the Children and Social Work Act 2017 actually relates to young people up to the age of 25. So in that sense, I think we are some ways culprit parents, in that if we have young people in care or leaving care in our area, as borough councillors, we have a responsibility for them. So whether you're dealing with an issue around a residential home in your area, you are responsible for both the people in the home and the residents in the area. There's a care leavers offer that Rushcliffe has, and I think we should be always continuously reviewing that. The question here, the motion here asks us to treat care experienced people as if they have a protected characteristic. They don't have a protected characteristic because the law is a legal definition. It's to treat them as if they have a protected characteristic. And what that would basically entail is including them in the equality impact assessments. So I think this would potentially mean considering how we charge council tax, or at least deal with council tax, when considering people who have been in care. Obviously, very clearly dealing with people who are made homeless and considering how our homeless policies deal with people who've been in care. 52 councils have passed this motion, including Notts County Council and Newark and Sherwood councils, and I hope that we're going to join them today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite Councillor. I think we're all having, or some of us are having difficulty. You can just swipe it with the card. That's it.
Young people, they are often invisible and they face the greatest of inequalities. Terry mentioned that in his introductory question and contextualized very well our motion. Children in care, they face, and care experienced young people, they face discrimination at disadvantage at every phase of their life. They face discrimination in education, they face discrimination in housing, in health outcomes, in mortality rates, through the criminal punitive justice system, through the relationship they attach. They are like twice as likely to be homeless, twice as likely not to have a degree, over 6 times as likely not to have a full-time job at the age of 26, over 1.5 times likely to experience multiple disadvantages in life. Now, care experience and the care sector is always in the news. It was in the news during the pandemic because of the spiraling costs. It was before because large private enterprise were making large profit margin of 22.6%, accruing massive debts with a risk to be bankrupt. And most importantly, as was mentioned and touched by Terry, it was in the news back in 2019 when 40% of children in care were placed far away from where they were brought up. About 2,000 children, they were placed about 100 miles away from their support network, from their extended family. We know how disturbing and disruptive is for any children to be uprooted from their neighborhoods, from their friends, from their families, from their schools, from their familiar places. Take into account that these children have attachment issues and they have been traumatized. We can understand how they get re-traumatized and the amplified effect that it has of them. There were anecdotal speeches by children in care that describe their experience, and young girl saying that she cannot even pinpoint in the map where she is. The intersectionality, the different levels of oppressions experienced by these people, like their race, their ability levels, if they have a normal perceptual system, their beliefs, they weren't taken into account. So we had an autistic girl being moved within a weekend's notice about 100 miles away. She said 4 years after, she still doesn't feel safe and she still doesn't feel like she has a place to call home. Now, the Quality Act was introduced back in 2010 by the Lepu government to consolidate and enrich legislation and to make sure that people know their rights. to make sure that people with protect characteristics, they are not going to be discriminated because of who they love, because of their belief system, because of their age, because of their sexual orientation. The Equality Act is not meant to be a closed community organizers. There is a petition and a motion in government asking for care to be a protected characteristic, and we hope that soon the Equality Act is going to be amended and enriched to include care as a protected characteristic. In the meantime, as Councillor Penny Golan has mentioned, over 52 councils, both unitary and district, have agreed to treat care as a protective characteristic, and through the equality impact
30
assessment.
seconds left. Sorry.
Okay, so I think it is our responsibility as councillors to be the champions of children in care and the fight against systemic structural inequality they experience. The Equality Act is there for all of us. Fairness and equality matter because in a more fair and unequal society, we all thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, I have here Councillor Wheeler and then Councillor Plant to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gallant and Councillor Lenter, for bringing this motion in front of us this evening. Rushcliffe Borough Council has a strong track record of supporting those who've been in care, and we acknowledge that some care experienced people can face significant barriers when to prosper. This includes being a signatory to the County Council Partnership Strategy, which Mr. Holloway mentioned earlier this evening.
Sitting next to her.
We're back. So the Looked After Children Care Leavers 2022-2025 strategy, which we set on with the County Council and District Councils within the area. So part of what we do, just to elaborate, because based on what Councillor Gallant set up this evening, and so for everyone in this room to be aware of what we do. We're part of a joint care leaver housing office. That means that any care leaver within the county can apply to any district or borough council to move to, which I'm really proud that we're part of that, because we're aware that some care leavers want to move to a different area to be able to move on. We offer priority on the housing register for care leavers already, and we're proud to do that as well. We also offer free access to our leisure facilities for care leavers, which we do in partnership with our leisure contractors. I think it's really important to offer that facility to those who have left care. We also have a policy within the council to discount council tax for care leavers, which gives them the support when they transition to independent living. So again, really proud that we really offer that as well. And as I mentioned, we do attend the Notts Care Leavers Partnership meeting, which, so as Councillor Kennedy said about how we keep reviewing what we do. So we sit there with our partners to look at if that partnership still working, if it needs amending. Just because we're part of it until 2025 doesn't mean that we can look at how we can keep reviewing what we do to support those who've left care. So we do consider the impacts of the decision we make as a council through our equality impact assessment process. And that does include those who have left care. And what we are also doing later on this year is going to be reviewing those assessments and the processing that we go through. So we will absolutely make sure, based on the motion this evening, that we look at how we can review what we're doing and if we need to make any changes to improve what we're already doing. So as you may guess, we are going to be supporting the motion this evening. And thank you very much again for bringing that in front of us. I think it's really important we send that clear message to those who have left care that are here in Rushcliffe about the support we offer. And what I'll say as well is to anyone who has left care is out there and is wondering what support we can offer, then please do give us a call. Contact our customer services team. We're more than happy to take you through what options we can do and to offer that support to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Plant, would you like to speak?
The other side.
The other side. The left for mine.
That's what
There
we're
you
waiting
go.
for, isn't it? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'm really pleased to hear what Councillor Wheeler has just said, but I'm still going through, and what I say is, to be fair, will be a fair bit of repetition. But I do think it is really, this is a really important motion. and I do think, you know, we can't repeat or we can't overstate the disadvantages that obviously care leavers actually experience, obviously throughout their lives. So, as has been said by obviously my previous colleagues, so far this motion has been supported by 53 other local councils, and that number could well be more by now. And that includes county councils, borough, district and unitary councils. And the number, thankfully, includes councils of all political persuasions. And I think that is really brilliant. And I'm very, very pleased it's come before Rushcliffe now. Terry Galloway, who spoke very movingly at the beginning of the meeting, has worked tirelessly to ensure this motion is supported, not just in Nottinghamshire, but across the country. And the more councils that support this motion, the more pressure can be brought to bear on the government to legislate for care experience to become a protected characteristic. And I'm sure all members of this council would agree that care experienced children, young people and care leavers have the most difficult start in life. Many have suffered levels of neglect and abuse that will impact on them throughout their lives. Care leavers often face stigma and discrimination in health, education, housing, employment and the criminal justice system. Care leavers make up a quarter of the homeless population and are far less likely to be in education, employment or training, and are overrepresented in the prison population. So anything we can do as a borough council through the services that we deliver to improve the lives of care experienced young people should undoubtedly be considered. Obviously, as a borough council, we don't provide adult or children's social care services, but we do provide, or rather our partner housing associations provide, the most important services for care leavers, and that is a safe and secure accommodation. Also, advice on benefits, maintaining a tenancy, homeless support and more, all of which are crucial to care leavers who are leaving local authority care without, as Councillor Gowler expressed very warmly, without the support of a loving family that do all the things that obviously we take for our children take for granted. This council, as Councillor Wheeler says, does have a local offer for care leavers. It was agreed by Cabinet in 2019, and it's part of Nottinghamshire County Council's joint local offer. And the Cabinet actually, the words from the Cabinet report were to look at supporting and implementing elements of the offer that are of particular relevance to borough and district councils. And Councillor Wheeler has mentioned a number of them. There is, care leavers do have a discount to the council tax. They do have obviously free leisure centre membership, and they receive priority for social housing, all crucial issues. But this offer was made 4 years ago, and I'm not sure if that offer has ever been reviewed or been subject to scrutiny during that time to assess the impact on care leavers. And now, really, certainly with this motion coming to council, is the time to do just that. And Councillor Wheeler has said that that will be done. Including, and the other thing also on that issue is I wonder how many councillors in this room actually know about that local offer and actually know what is in place for care leavers. So that needs to be addressed without a doubt. And I'm still actually not sure whether we are corporate parents. I think that has come in now. Yeah. So again, without a doubt, I think as councillors, we need training on that issue. Including care experience as a protected characteristic under the Equalities Act of 2010 would mean care experienced people could not be discriminated against because of the time they've spent in local authority care. The important thing, though, is it would mean councils including care experience as a category within their equality impact assessment policies, which would mean having due regard for the impact council policies, decisions and services have on care experienced people and listening to their voices in terms of those actual policies being delivered. I obviously urge you to support the motion, and it's going to be supported anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Malinder, please.
Councillor Plant.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thought that was me then. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you very much to Terry, who spoke so movingly at the beginning of the meeting. I'm just going to be brief because a lot has already been said about this. having worked for Nottingham City Council within play and youth for some years, I've met a lot of children who were care leavers and who are in care. And it's a last resort for people nowadays. It's not an easy decision for the councils that make those decisions to place children in care. And it's due to the very chaotic lives and the very sad circumstances that those children find themselves in. Unfortunately, government statistics are showing that more and more children are ending up in care, despite that decision being a very hard one and not one anyone wants to take. So that number is rising year on year. So I feel that we should all support this motion, and I believe that Rushcliffe Borough Council, like those other 53 councils, should be leading the way before the government itself makes people with care experience a protected characteristic in the Equalities Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chewings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Terry, for speaking earlier on for your experiences. Truly saddening to hear how it's affected you, your family's life, and carer leavers throughout Rushcliffe. I will be supporting this motion, but we're here today with a shorter motion. Originally, Councillor Gowland submitted a detailed motion at the 13th of July full council meeting and withdrew it. And if I remember correctly, Councillor Gowland withdrew it on the grounds that she understood that amendments was coming forward from the leading group to remove certain elements, and she wanted to work with that group to come today with an agreeable motion that would not be altered, and we're presented with a mere 4 lines. So I'm saddened to see that, but we are where we are. I'd like today council to consider from the previous motion, so the lines are in there, and move forward the leading group to look at these areas, to work with all councillors, and to actually implement work for carers. So some of those lines: undertake a review into the impact of the council's care leaver offer, and identify potential improvements and developments to improve the quality of life of care experience. Now, Councillor Wheeler has undertaken that, and I hope we can see that in the coming months. As Councillor Plant mentioned, 2019 that this was originally implemented, and some 4 years later, we're not aware of any review. So that is actually dealt with in the most utter urgency. Include people with care experience in general engagement exercises and discussions on new policy, so the opportunities to shape the influence of what we do. Vital, absolutely vital. I'm saddened to see that not in today's motion. And calling our partners as a council. And treat care experience people as if they protect the characters in those partners. Again, we should be calling that out to the partners we work with. So I ask the leading group to take this forward. I will be supporting this motion. As I say, it's such an important motion. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barney, please.
I'm going to be incredibly brief because those of you at the County Council this morning will recall that I've already spoken in support of children in care and foster parents and adopted parents as well today. And Terry, you'll recall as well that I spoke at the County Council when this was brought. This is an issue that's very personal to me, with my own family setting and my parents having been foster and adoptive parents over many generations. I have a number of foster siblings and I have 4 adopted siblings. And Terry, it's not about me. I've never spent a second in care. I don't know what it feels like, but I do love my siblings greatly. And I'm pleased to champion the voice of those in care like you and others as well. So pleased to support this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very, even briefer than Councillor Barnett, because obviously this is such an important issue. Councillor Wheeler has already detailed our support for it, and the fact that comments came from the other side saying, you know, to a certain extent, it's we're repeating each other. So that demonstrates pretty much agreement, if not unanimity. So I think we're very happy to support this and make sure that it happens. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to debate? Okay. Councillor Gowland, would you like to
Thank you.
respond?
I'll also be brief. So I'm very grateful for the complete support for this motion, and I'd like to thank Terry for encouraging us to bring it to the council. Rushcliffe is, as we've heard, a high-performing council and certainly a very well-resourced council. For care experienced people. I'd like to reiterate those words, care experienced people. We're not talking about just care leavers. This is something that will be with these people for the rest of their lives. Having said that, I would like to again highlight the problems of people who are 22, 21. We can all remember being 22. We all thought we were growing up at 22. Anybody who's been lucky enough to be the parent of a 22-year-old will know 22-year-olds aren't grown up. They need support, and care experienced people are missing that support. So this is for the whole of life. So we're very pleased to hear what Rushcliffe is doing, but as Councillor Plant said, it would be really great to make sure through council connections and everything else, all your other communications methods, that both we as councillors and the community are aware of that provision. I would like us to receive training on corporate parenting and training on equality impact assessments across the board. Also, this motion, and Terry has been bringing these motions to councils, but this doesn't just apply to councils. So if you're out in your communities, out in your world, take this to other organisations, this idea, this concept to other organisations. I'm certainly taking it to my workplace. The motion was shortened, but that's because we believe that these words actually cover all the rest. So we hope that with these words passed, the rest of the previous motion will, by de facto, come into a place, and we'll be bringing questions to ensure that that happens going forward, which I trust it will. So I'd like to end by thanking Terry for turning what has been his, terrible traumas into powerful change in a very great way. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the vote on the motion that you see up there before you. Okay, all in favour? Okay. Okay, so I declare that the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Before we start the next motion, I'm of a mind to have a quick 5-minute break for those, and then we will continue on to the end of the meeting. So if we come back within 5 minutes, it'll be just, 25 past 8. Thank you. Would you all like to take your seats, please? I can whistle. Thank you. Yeah, come on. Spit spot.
Get that gavel.
No. They're all sitting down now. Are you, what do you do? Okay, thank you. We shall be starting in a moment. Right. I haven't got a gavel, but I've got one of some glass. Anyway, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed your 5. Actually, I think it could have been 7 minutes, but I'm not too picky. Right, we now go on to the notice of motion to be put by Councillor Birch. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would like to request a recorded vote, please.
Okay.
Good evening, councillors. I'm here tonight to speak about an issue that has blighted Bingham for more than 10 years. This is the first time that Bingham's parking problems have been debated here at Rushcliffe Borough Council, which I find remarkable considering that poor parking provision is the #1 issue in the town and has been for many years. It is high time that Bingham's residents get to hear a proper debate on the matter. What I intend to do tonight is to explain the parking issues and propose a positive way forward that gets actual results. The time for platitudes and empty promises is over. Bingham needs action, and it needs it yesterday. But before I go into the solutions that I'm proposing, let me first explain the issues that the town is facing. Bingham is the second largest settlement in Rushcliffe. It has a population of over 10,000. It is a market town with a bustling town centre containing many shops and amenities, and it puts on frequent community events. It is a local centre or local hub for over 30 villages and hamlets in the surrounding area. Where it differs from many settlements in the borough is that most of its shops and amenities are located in a small geographical area in the town centre. Its geography is very different from West Bridgford, for example. It also has a train station with an hourly service to Nottingham, which attracts commuters who park in the town before getting the train, and many commuters park in the town before getting the bus as well. There are 165 parking bays in Bingham. We have known since 2014 that 2,000 vehicles park in the town in the day. We also know that 60% of those parking bays are a write-off because people park in them all day. What is happening is that people who work in Bingham town centre or commute from Bingham by bus or train park in those bays all day, locking them up and preventing others from using them. In reality, there are just 66 active bays that people can use in the day. Based on the data accrued by professionals at Nottinghamshire County Council, just 8% of the vehicles that visit Bingham use 60% of the parking capacity. I'll say that again. 8% of the vehicles use 60% of the parking capacity. We've known this for 9 years. And I was concerned to see Councillor Inglis's comments recently in which he stated, quote, "Surprisingly, the data suggests that Bingham has twice as many parking spaces per resident than in West Bridgford. The number of parking bays is an irrelevant metric on whether adequate parking provision is provided to a town." That comment betrays a total lack of understanding of Bingham's issues. What is important is how the bays are used and for how long. Also, Bingham is unusual again in that, because of its geography, there are very few private car parking spaces in the 80 retail units in the town centre, and there is not a huge amount of on-street parking. Most of the burden for the parking falls on the car parks. The question we need to ask is, does the current parking provision meet the needs of Bingham's residents and the many thousands of visitors to the town? The answer to this is an unequivocal no, nowhere near. It is a common sight to see cars entering the full car parks, circle a few times looking for a space, fail, give up, then try the already saturated residential streets around the town centre, which are also full of cars, fail again, give up and go home. Excuse me. I dread to think what the financial impact on Bingham's businesses is. This is serious. People cannot park when going to the doctors or when they need to pop into town to buy a pint of milk. People miss out on the many clubs and amenities and activities that the town offers. Elderly and disabled residents are the worst affected. It is a farce, a joke, a disgrace. We are talking about a large affluent market town and we are failing to provide basic services to its residents. We get it yet? The parking issues are serious and urgent. They need sorting immediately, not in several years, now. The working group that has been set up is a talking shop, and the proposals that are being bandied about was years ago. At any point in the past 10 years, this council could have stepped up and intervened to solve this problem, and you've chosen not to. The first official data exposing how bad the parking is was published in 2014. In 2015, Bingham Town Council published its parking strategy report, making many sensible recommendations, including building a long-stay car park at Butt Field. That's 8.5 years ago. In 2018, this council spent 30 grand on the Bingham Master Plan report, which clearly states that parking was the #1 issue in the town. Yet nothing was done. The facts speak for themselves. This council has earmarked nearly £20 million to other capital projects in the borough, which presumably you deem a higher priority than Bingham's car park. To my knowledge, there are no substantial figures budgeted for the car park going forward. How can Bingham's residents take you seriously? I don't. The numbers don't lie. You have not demonstrated at any time in the past 10 years that this issue is remotely important to you. I think that if we carry on down this path, nothing will be done for years, just like the previous 10 years. So how do we go about solving it? My motion proposes a holistic solution with several different aspects to it, but the key to fixing Bingham's parking is the building of a new long-stay car park. We have the perfect site. It's close to the town centre. Bingham Town Council already own it, so there's no purchasing. We don't need to purchase any land. It links directly to the north side of Bingham Station and is large enough to put approximately 200 parking bays in, give or take. For comparison, Bingham currently has a total of 165 bays. The new car park will more than double capacity, but more importantly, will free up space in the existing car parks for short stay parking. The idea is that the new car park will be a long stay car park for staff who work in Bingham Town Centre and for commuters, and the existing town centre car parks will be made exclusively for short stay. This is a sensible and obvious solution and was first formally proposed by Bingham Town Council in March 2015. That's 8.5 years ago. 8.5 years. We've been talking about this for 8.5 years. So whilst we're building that car park, it is essential that we achieve step-free access to the north platform, which will be adjacent to it, and over the railway bridge, which would allow people with disabilities and those with young children to access the town centre from the new car park. Again, this isn't a new idea. This idea has been floated for years, and because of the ineptitude of various local councils, many grant funding opportunities have already passed Bingham by. We need to liaise with Notts County Council to make provision of street parking much better and to protect residents on surrounding residential roads who are being swamped by cars. Currently, there is zero parking enforcement in Bingham. We need to make a pledge to Bingham's residents and set a deadline. This will send us a clear signal that we are serious about this issue and will provide some long overdue accountability. The only reason you would not provide a deadline is if you are not serious about this project. I don't see the issue with setting a date as a target and working towards it. I also call to write to the directors of Network Rail and East Midlands Railway, an open letter, publish it and publish their responses, asking them why specifically they oppose the project. Most importantly of all, this council needs to take the project off Bingham Town Council's hands. Bingham Town Council is a third tier parish level council. And that's not a knock on any of the councillors in Bingham Town Council or the excellent staff. They are superb. But Bingham Town Council is not set up to deal with a project of this scale and this complexity. Last year, I served on Bingham Town Council and was chair of the car park committee. I know the detail, I know the challenges we face, and I know that if we continue on this path, the project will not be delivered for many years, if at all. Nothing the majority party opposites has done in the past 10 years gives me any confidence that they will deliver. Rushcliffe Borough Council should take the lead on this project and bring its vast resources and expertise to bear on the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chewings, do you wish to second the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Right. Councillor Inglis, do you wish to speak? Thank you.
That works. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think basically, I simply recommend that this motion is rejected in full for the following key reasons. The council's approach to working holistically with key partners is better understand the car park solution in Bingham and explore solutions through the development of the car park strategy, has already been clearly set out in the Cabinet report that was approved on the 12th of September 2023, last month. So this motion is largely redundant and unnecessary. The motion contains a number of personal opinions and views of the councillor, which could be viewed as inaccurate or misleading. It's not clear that Bingham has inadequate parking, as the Cabinet report identifies that the spaces to resident ratio is twice that of West Bridgford and is greater than the other major villages in the borough. This is why a survey is required to understand the current situation in full detail to how the existing spaces are currently designated. Bingham Town Council have been leading on the development on the Longstay car park since their master plan was published in 2018. The planning applications for new housing in Bingham were reviewed by the Highways Authority in respect to transport and travel, and in line with current policy, there would have been an emphasis on active travel, such as walking and cycling from the new developments into the town centre. The motion also contains a number of elements which the council's statutory officers cannot support. For example, making a pledge to break new ground on a long-stay car park without appropriate business case, due diligence, decision making by the council. This is just ludicrous. A commitment to purchasing contaminated. Sorry, I'm talking. I didn't interrupt you.
If you wish to stand and say what it is.
Explanation. If you actually look at the language in the motion, it says the council aims. That's just the aim for a date. It doesn't actually say to actually go to a definitive date. What I'm saying is we make an aim.
Okay, point made.
Okay, so let me
Thank
finish
you.
and that will become clear. A commitment to purchase contaminated land without knowledge of the cost of rendition for a potential car park that may not be the best parking solution are not the actions of a responsible council. In respect of step-free access on the north platform at Bingham Station, this is a matter of East Midlands Rail, and in conjunction with Network Rail, as the owner and operator of the railway station. Notwithstanding this point, the council has liaised with both AMR and Northern Rail, Network Rail, and the latter has already written the confirmation of their willingness to improve step-free access, subject to a further successful funding bid. Councillor Burt should well know of the difficulties, the setbacks and the challenges that need to be overcome, especially with the stakeholders, having been the chair of Bingham Town Council's car park subcommittee, and that the preferred partnership originally was with Newark and District Council. He chaired their meetings up to January this year, but I can't find any mention of these proposals that he brings to council today. It is only now that Councillor Birch pontificates on Bingham social media, suggesting it's him who is going to make it happen. The hero, a saviour for his residents, the lead protagonist, when in fact that's so far from the truth and reality.
Excuse me, Councillor Birch, is this relevant?
I don't know what the standing order is. I don't think there's any need for an ad hoc attack.
I'm sorry, that's not a point of order. If you'd like to sit down. Thank you.
Suppose Councillor Birch cannot take personal credit for what has and what is being done. His suggestions undermine Bingham Town Council, Rushcliffe Borough Council, the officers and councillors in the work they actually engaged in, since Rushcliffe Borough Council and Bingham Town Council developed a project partnership only last year. As Councillor Chewins alluded earlier, we all need to work together as councillors. I ask all members to reject this motion and allow the strategic group to progress this project with Bingham Town Council, Notts County Council and the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grocott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Labour Group recognises that parking is a long-standing issue in Bingham, and it does need to be addressed. The expansion of the town through the Bingham North development, combined with the services Bingham provides to a significant number of surrounding villages, including those in my ward of Cranmer, only exacerbates the issue. Nevertheless, we are deeply concerned about this motion, which we consider to be anti-democratic, not environmentally friendly, and perhaps most crucially, not addressing the fundamental challenge of developing a car park on the stated site. I understand that Bingham Town Council met on Tuesday, 19th September this week to discuss whether they would support the proposal set out in the update on car parking in Bingham placed before Cabinet on 12th September 2023, and the invitation to join the Bingham Car Parking Strategy Group, along with Bingham Town Council officer support. The Town Council is a much different council from that which hit the headlines over the past few years. It is now a council which is proud to have won the Foundation Award as part of the local council award scheme, where councillors from across the political spectrum, Labour, Independent and Conservative, work together for the good of the town. In that context, it is disappointing that this motion is being moved by a councillor who, although living in Bingham, chose not to stand for any of the Bingham wards at the recent Rushcliffe Borough Council elections, but instead stood in Cropwell outside of the town. If this motion has the support of the actual Borough Council elected representatives for the town of Bingham, why has one of them not chosen to bring this motion to Rushcliffe Borough Council tonight? This motion, if passed, would commit Rushcliffe Borough Council to purchase a parcel of land, an asset owned by Bingham Town Council. But no one has asked whether Bingham Town Council has it in mind to sell that land to Rushcliffe Borough Council. Nor does it acknowledge that the elected councillors in Bingham, whether Town Council or Borough, might wish to have a say in how the business of their town is managed and their electors best served. This motion has not been officially discussed nor shared with Bingham Town Council. This spring, Councillor Birch stood for Bingham Town Council and was elected. Despite that, he resigned almost immediately, and in fairness, no doubt due to the commitments he now has as a borough councillor for Cropwell. But perhaps if he had taken up the seat given to him by the electors of Bingham, he would have a full view of and opportunity to contribute to the work being done by the Town Council on behalf of the people of Bingham.
Just a moment. Councillor Birch. You are, but it has to be relevant.
Because our point of clarification, I didn't resign because of my commitments. The reasons why I resigned will become clear in the future, but it was not for that reason.
Not relevant. Okay, sit down.
Okay. In short, Councillor Birch has no democratic mandate to speak for the people of Bingham, beyond his own personal opinions as a resident. Whilst I don't doubt that he clearly does care passionately about the town, his actions in unilaterally bringing this motion this evening fall a long way short of what might be considered the correct democratic operation between different tiers of local government. Turning to the environment, this motion fails to even consider sustainable transport solutions and the involvement of Nottinghamshire County Council in restoring regular and frequent bus routes to and from the surrounding villages into Bingham, and how that might ease parking congestion. The Rushcliffe Conservatives pride themselves on Rushcliffe's low rates of council tax, but I wonder if the higher band taxpayers of North East Rushcliffe wouldn't be willing to pay a little more to subsidise a proper bus service for the elderly, vulnerable and younger residents of the rural parishes surrounding Bingham. Unfortunately, the current County Council administration has an ideological commitment to public bus services operating commercially, which makes that scenario highly unlikely. But in respect of this motion, Labour would only support plans that encourage further car usage if they were mitigated by a sustainable transport plan. That is clearly absent. The car parking situation in Bingham is complex. If it were not, it would have been settled years ago. The parcel of land identified as a potential parking site and which Councillor Birch demands the Borough Council purchase is on the wrong side of the railway line and is accessed by a pedestrian level crossing. Currently, Network Rail have stated clearly that they will object to any planning application for a car park on the site on the grounds of safety. As I understand it, both Rushcliffe Borough Council and Bingham Town Council have collectively met with Network Rail and are actively trying to find a solution to the issue. Both councils recognise that the current situation, while not insoluble, is nevertheless difficult and may take some considerable time to work through. That is why the Town Council are keen to work with the Borough Council to continue to explore alternatives, and why I know Councillor Bird, the Mayor of Bingham Town Council, was nominated by a cross-party group of councillors to sit on the strategy group. So in summary, the Labour group believe that this motion brought tonight is ill-considered, ill-advised and undemocratic in the way that the mandate given to Bingham Town councillors by the local electors of Bingham has been ignored by a councillor representing a borough ward outside the town. Passing it would represent a failure of democracy, which does not serve the people of Bingham. Therefore, the Labour group will be opposing the motion this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Rushcliffe has allocated £25,000 towards Bingham's car parks, plus some officer assistance. Well, lucky Bingham. Eastleigh has had 1,400 extra houses, and the parish council itself had to fund extra car parking spaces in the village centre without as much as a brass farthing from Rushcliffe, managing these moderately complex projects itself. And what is more, the parish council has to pay business rates on the car parks it owns, plus the one it maintains and manages on Rushcliffe's land. We have no electric vehicle charging points, and all resurfacing and ongoing repairs are funded by the parish council. Compare this with West Bridgford, where Rushcliffe takes full responsibility for the car parks, with the cost presumably coming from the Rushcliffe portion of the rates, not the West Bridgford special expense, and with the added luxury of patrols to enforce parking restrictions and issue fines. So as an Eastleigh resident, I pay towards Eastleigh's car park and also West Bridgford's and other car parks across Rushcliffe operated by Rushcliffe. The rationale, no doubt, is that West Bridgford is a centre for all of Rushcliffe, but to be honest, many of us hardly ever go there, and Eastleigh, Bingham and the other larger villages are all equally acting as centres for their surrounding villages, which do not contribute to the car parks via their own parish precept.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask a point of order? Whilst I have great respect for Councillor Thomas, we haven't even mentioned Bingham yet, and this is a debate about car parking in Bingham.
Yes, I think you have a point. Sorry, Gareth, off you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We note the paper on this subject at the last Cabinet meeting and the setting up of the Bingham Car Park Strategy Group, which will hopefully take things forward for Bingham, though I'm not sure why the issue has not been taken up by the Bingham Growth Board already before this. We have sympathy with Councillor Birch's frustration, but can neither support nor oppose this motion, nor can we find a way to amend it. Instead, we request that Rushcliffe works with the town and parish councils to undertake a full review of sufficiency of provision, ownership costs, responsibilities, charges and income for car parks across all the local centres and settlements across Rushcliffe. This would be with a view to devising a policy that is fair to all residents in terms of the support it provides for car parking for all its retail centres and who bears the cost. Such a review would take into account the aspirations and perceptions of the communities and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark and then Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm grateful. I applaud Councillor Grocock's speech, which was very informative, lots of detail, almost as though it was written by one of the town councillors themselves. It was very informative. In Bingham, Madam Mayor, there's a very successful athletics club. Lots of runners, running very fast. Let's tie their hands behind their backs. Let's put balls and chains around their ankles so they can't drive forward. Well, that's just what this motion is proposing to do to this council and to the cabinet decision that has now already taken place. Because if this motion was passed, we would be tied and not able to actually look properly at options and to drive the project forward, because it will be telling us we've got to do things that actually aren't possible in certain cases. And it was impossible to try and amend this motion because it was so detailed and complex, it just wouldn't be possible. So to continue the analogy, Councillor Birch is rather behind the curve, Madam Mayor, because we're already out of the blocks. Cabinet last week approved the working group to take this forward, and indeed the Bingham Town Council has already heard and approved and noted it as well. So if Councillor Birch was really so passionate about this, why didn't he stay at the Cabinet meeting and listen to the debate on car parking rather than leave the moment that he had spoken at the beginning? At the Bingham Town Council meeting last Tuesday, he came and spoke at the beginning and then left. Why didn't he stay and listen to two items that related to the car parking in Bingham? We are now in the stage of a new regime. We have now got the working groups set up by the Cabinet, and we can now be taking that forward. To tie our hands would not work at all. Land ownership is a major issue. If we don't know whether people want to sell land, then it can't be done. Talking shop. How does Councillor Birch possibly know that this Cabinet working group is a talking shop? It hasn't met yet, but just to promise you, Madam Mayor, it is going to be meeting in the next 2 or 3 weeks to get started and make sure that we do actually drive this project forward. I acknowledge there are lots of issues in car parking, as I think Councillor Brocock said. If there was an easy solution, it would have been done already. But there are short wins that can be achieved while we then look at the longer term as well. Growth boards were mentioned. Well, now this working group is going to be focused on one issue of car parking in Bingham to drive forward and get some solutions. So it's imperative that we do that, and I'm confident that all parties at every level, because I do have some influence regarding transport on the county council, so the county council and the borough council and the town council are going to be working together, all steering in the same direction. So the only way to proceed with that is to vote against this motion, because it just isn't workable, it isn't achievable. There are some things that have already been discussed in that motion that can be taken forward, but there are things that can't be, because it would tie this council down to commitments that cannot be achieved. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Just made it on the half a minute to go. Thank you. Councillor Bird, and then it'll be Councillor Reagan.
Thank you very much, Madam Madam Mayor. An awful lot of what is up there is very positive. Point 2, point 5. Time is wrong. There are many organisations who need to make positive contributions and positive commitments before many of these actions become possible. And this particularly relates to Network Rail, who effectively are a barrier to what we want. And we have to work on this, which is why in some respects, point 2 is something that I think is very worthy. I hope we will work together, and I'm sure that this is the best way forward at the moment. I would like to invite Councillor Birch and all the other councillors who are close to Bingham to share with us their requests, their concerns, and let us know what they want, because in that respect, we hopefully will be able to move forward. I also thank everybody in this debate for sharing a proper and good debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reagan.
This is my first time speaking at full council, so bear with me. I also have a stutter, which is both a superpower and my Achilles heel. So again, just give me a bit of time from time to time. So I would like to show appreciation to Councillor Birch for raising this issue and the passion with which you have raised it. That is as far as my appreciation is going to go. As a councillor for Crookwell Butler and Crookwell Bishop, it would have been great to involve the councillors of Bingham. This is what we've been elected to do by the people of Bingham. But I do recognise your passion and influence, and I embrace any input, whether it's from residents, from business owners, from people who use Bingham for parking. Any input into this issue is, whether it's negative or positive, adds weight to the debate and helps us to progress it forward. You characterise this as an issue that appears exclusive, that you've had a somehow an exclusive insight into, but during the elections, I guarantee almost every single doorstep, every single front door I knocked on, and everyone I spoke to, this was the #1 issue in Bingham, which is why we've put together this committee. I've lived in Bingham for 11 years. I fully understand the issue. I live on the corner of Market Street and Longacre, and I see it on an hourly basis. I see the dangers to pedestrians. I see the issues of congestion. I see the issues associated with access on an hourly basis these days. So I don't think anybody in this room is under any illusion that this isn't a serious issue. I recognise that some of this has been mentioned by Councillor Clark and Councillor Brocock, but I'll say again, had Councillor Birch stayed to the end of the Cabinet meeting last week and the Bingham Town Council meeting this week, he would have been a lot further forward in his understanding of the processes that are taking place. A strong strategy group has been formed, as Councillor Clark mentioned, and we are already active in the community. I certainly am, I know other councillors are, on a almost daily basis, talking to residents about parking, responding to emails, building information and case studies. And I would encourage you to do the same through the channel that we already have. You have our email addresses, you have our phone numbers, photographs, evidence, suggestions about improvements we are happy to embrace and discuss. I don't speak for the other councillors in Bingham, but it's the #1 reason why I was elected a councillor. It was certainly the hot topic. And again, to Councillor Clark's point, encouraging or putting RBC in a situation where they are contracted or tied or bound to purchasing a specific piece of land, I think is a poor strategic move. It may be that piece of land ultimately is part of the plan, but I think forcing our hand at this point is a poor use of our time and resources. And that's, I mean, a lot of it's already been said, so I'm going to close there. But thank you.
Thank you.
I should also add, but I won't be supporting the motion as it stands. And actually, to Councillor Burr's point, there are points within the motion, like for example, again, point 2 is let's add gravitas to the conversation. Let's get Network Rail. Let's engage with the EMR and find some funding for these things. But as part of a greater holistic plan driven by this strategic group.
Thank you. Okay, it's Councillor Williams and then Councillor Polenta. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm quite sad that this motion has come to us today in the way it is. I would like to think that as a ward councillor, I'm quite approachable to my residents and being able for them to come with issues and to speak to me about those issues. Where we've got I've got a resident here in the room who's then brought this motion to tonight without actually prior speaking to myself about it and about the issues and for the reasons why, until you learn when it's published on the tonight's agenda. I think with this, as it's been said, it's very subjective. With the first one being with a business case, it's like how long is a piece of string with those kind of things, for example. And I don't like where it does cut out that bottom level of democracy of Bingham Town Council and working with them in order to, it just cuts their voice out of it, where people often go to the meetings and discuss about the parking issues. Again, only on Tuesday night, we had a resident there raising about parking issues in Bingham that they experience and how that impacts on them. I do think that with this kind of issue, it is about everybody working together and trying to look at these solutions. And it's not just with the Free Council, it's all with all the other stakeholders that are involved, like it's been alluded to with Network Rail tonight and speaking to them. And only today, they were on Bingham Market there talking to residents about the crossings and they're at the actual Moor Lane crossing, speaking to residents when they were going over, but also had a stall on the marketplace. And that has come from working with the RBC, Bingham Town Council and Network Rail and discussions around that on things that can be done with the people that they've highlighted going across the crossing for whatever reason. Councillor kind of said that we don't need to, RBC doesn't need to purchase any land because Bingham Town Council owns it. But it's kind of going that we're just going to go and buy that land off them. But I think it's not exactly a very good way with working together in order to do that. I think it's kind of very much forcing the hand, and it also takes away with what Bingham Town Council might then look at other options for that piece of land, with it being next to a sports facility that again is growing and has its own needs. But also with the it's also been alluded with the date of breaking ground in 2027. I think that kind of then just goes that we have to focus on this one plot of land. And he alludes that he thinks it's holistic, and I don't find that this kind of motion is holistic, because you are only looking at one place, and it's so much of going that we build this car park at Butt Field, and that will kind of solve all our problems in the town. If only that was that simple. I don't think it is. It's been alluded to. It's a very complicated subject in the town. There are many different avenues, and when one thing's come about, another, it's kind of snowballed into other issues and other challenges in order to face this. And if it was just plain and simple of just putting some tarmac on an area of land, it would have happened. But there's been lots of other areas on that, so I won't be supporting this motion as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Polenta.
Thank you. Of course, I fully endorse what Councillor Chris Crocker said. Being part of course, of the Labour group, we do strive to consensual decision making, and I 100% agree with him. So me speaking may appear like it's surplus to requirement, and I don't have particular knowledge of the bigger locality, certainly not as extensive as the other colleagues have. However, that's the reason I would like to speak, because even if I fully endorse this motion, and if I agree with all the points 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm looking at the point 1 of the motion that says, make a formal written offer to Bingham Town Council to take over the proposed car park project by purchasing the land of them. So even if I agree with the rest of the 340 words of the motion, these are the words of the motion, independent of the particularities and the content of the motion, that they will make me to vote unequivocally and without parameterizations against this motion. Because what this sentence does is it erodes the different tiers of local government. It erodes and erase the role of the parish council and the town council, which is the structures that is closer to the communities, the structure where it's more related to the way we live our life. It has the closest proximities to our neighborhood. It is the structure where democracy and community participation is most fulfilled. And by putting this sentence, it sort of rubbish the Localism Act. I think the role of councillor is not only to pass good progressive policies, but the most important role of councillors is to open up our institutions to the community and encourage extensive participation to perform democracy as a deliberative act. And this motion does the exact opposite. I don't believe that the end justifies the means. I believe that the medium is the message, and I believe that corrupted means can lead to corrupted ends. Therefore, I couldn't possibly endorse this motion, even if I knew nothing about the content of this motion. I know a bit about the content of this motion, and there is another reason why, for me, it's impossible to endorse this motion. This motion takes a very myopic view of the neighborhoods, of the cities, from the gaze of the motorist, of the car, and that's the only perspective it addressed. Also, I recognize that I think we should exercise safe parking. There should be enough parking spaces, and we shouldn't, of course, risk the health and safety of the pedestrians. I think the city is lived and experienced by more people than the motorists, is lived and experienced by young children, that they should have the right to autonomous walk safely by older people, by people that they don't have cars. And that's something we should take into account. And that's something that this motion doesn't take into account. It has been proven through extensive research and transport experts that if you increase car parks, then you increase cars. And after 2-3 years, you reach saturation point and you need more car parks. What we should be looking at is to change, is to think outside the box, out the straitjacket of the car, and to think of cities, of 15-minute cities, of a different way of urban planning, where everything is accessible, our leisure, our work, our cultural activities, with a lot of public open spaces for us to socialize, with greenery and riparian vegetation, to think, to dream of these 15-minute cities. And that, of course, doesn't mean that we are constraining ourselves within these 15 minutes locality, because as Chris and other speakers said, we need alternative, sustainable, multimodal public transportation as well to be as well able to transcend the city. So for these reasons I mentioned, I cannot possibly support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
Right. I've stayed out of this for most of the debate, but I've just thought, I've agonised over it, over why it's in front of us, if I'm perfectly honest. As a councillor from a neighbouring ward, I would never take an issue from somebody else's ward and present it at a council. I think it's unprofessional, if I'm perfectly honest. I use Bingham a lot. I drive my car into Bingham. I ride my motorbike into Bingham. I cycle into Bingham. So I use Bingham a lot. But I just don't understand why this motion is in front of us tonight, where there is clear due process and professionalism that's expected of members to go to other members who represent that ward and bring it up with them. I would never do that. I would never take, even though I use Bingham a lot, and my parishioners use Bingham a lot, I would never take it
directing council like this is totally unprofessional. And looking at the motion, often I say to my career and with my staff and everything, I used to go around this in my pockets and you say, I'm fresh out and I do once. And this is a magic world motion. It's a Harry Potter world. We have due process that we need to follow. And new councillors need to understand the due process. Due process is what keeps local government done bureaucratised. And to hijack it with these sorts of emotions and to take so much of our valuable time up is a disgrace. And I urge any councillor not to do that and to have the common decency to go to the local councillors, even if you live in a ward. You shouldn't be using your personal area where you live to prop up your own agenda because of where you live. If you live where you want to represent, you should represent that. And that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas, did you wish to?
That was the point of order, Mrs. Finished. I would like to propose that we move to the next item of business without a vote, please, Madam.
Just one moment. Can I go to Councillor Chewing?
Let me just explain to members what we're looking to do here then. So we've had a proposal to move to the next item of business. We will have a vote on whether we decide we want to do that. If we move to the next item of business, it means we do not take a vote on this motion, just to make that clear.
Straight afterwards, yeah, on moving to the next item of business.
We are now going to take a vote on moving to the next item of business. So, okay, you understand? Those.
Do you want to?
Sorry.
Just double checking, is everybody okay with that? Do you understand? So, as Gemma said, Councillor Thomas has proposed that we move to the next item of business without a vote on this motion. That has been seconded. Okay, so you're now going to be asked to vote on moving to the next item of business without voting on this. So you go straight to the next item of business. This has not been voted on or against or abstained. The motion will not be brought back. Okay. If you vote against moving to the next item of business, then we would resume and we'll go to Councillor Chewing for his right to respond second, Councillor Birch, and then the vote on this motion. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to vote? Councillor Birch, you can if you don't understand.
Just to clarify, if this doesn't get the vote, I don't get flat on response.
Right, got to get this right. So we are having a vote on whether to move to the next item of business. All those in favour of moving to the next item of business, would you raise your hands? Right, thank you. And those against? Right, thank you.
So
we now continue, and I go to Councillor Chewings to ask that he will, because he reserved his right to speak. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wow, it certainly caused a bit of frustration and debate today, didn't it? I want to touch a few inaccuracies. First of all, let's have a look. We are Rushcliffe Borough Council, we look at issues that affects Rushcliffe. Now, parking in Bingham. There's an assumption that's been presented today from several people that that is an issue that only affects the residents of Bingham. Does it really? What about, I was quiet when you spoke, so please. What?
Yes.
Statement's just been made that there was an assumption that the people, it's only affected people who park in, but we never mentioned that at all.
Okay, thank you. Correct.
I think we'll have to disagree. There was a number of councillors, including Councillor Sims, that made question of why Councillor Birch raised this when he's not a member for that ward of Bingham and the neighbouring ward. Now, let's have a look. Look at the surrounding areas. You have Cropwell Bishop, Cropwell Butler, Langer, all go to Bingham. Even my ward, Cockgrave. I know many residents from Cockgrave that have to, many times, go to Bingham, often to use the doctors. They'll phone up to Belver to get an appointment, and you'll get told, right, you can go to X location. And often, and I myself have had to go to Bingham and use car parking, or try, I say, to use car parking. So this is an issue that affects residents of Rushcliffe and not confined to just the residents of Bingham. There's been mention tonight of undemocratic, removing the right from Bingham Town Council. Let's have a look at the wording. Make a formal written offer to Bingham Town Council to take over the proposed car park. It's a proposal to Bingham. Bingham Town Council could refuse. It's not roughshotting it in. It's making a way forward and an offer to make a way forward. It's not forcing them into it, as it's been put forward. There has also been the assertion today that we're rushing ahead. We're moving forward to do this without putting a business case. Well, let's look in the brackets. Subject to a business case being approved. So there's a balance and check in there to make sure that it is viable. So I'm confused as to why that has come forward. So we have debated this long enough, and I'm pleased to see that we got to the end, because we were at the end, and it's important that we debate this. So I'm pleased to see that the vast majority move forward to hear the end of that debate. So I'm not going to take any more time. I will be supporting and obviously second this motion. We are 10 years in of inaction, 10 years in of no work forward. Yes, we've had a paper come forward to Cabinet a couple of weeks back. And I just want to touch on one point. An aspiration to get this done by 2027? Is that really hard to believe? 3 years from now? Can't do that in 3 years. Something's bad into it. So I ask you to support this motion. You'd make your own decision. And I second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Birch. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, everyone, for a robust debate. And obviously, the overwhelming feeling in the room is against it. And to be honest with you, I absolutely preempted that and expected that. But I can assure you, many residents in Bingham and many residents in the surrounding areas are screaming at YouTube right now, saying, well done, Councillor Birch, for bringing this, because no one else was. As I said, I was on Bingham Town Council last year, and I was on the car park committee. And this is the way forward I would have proposed had I not resigned. For the record, I didn't want to resign, and the reasons for my resignation will become very, very clear in the next few weeks and months. Very clear. And maybe we'll have some apologies and we'll have some change of opinions at that point. I want to thank Councillor Reagan for his constructive comments. And I know Councillor Reagan has the interest of Bingham at heart. He does a lot for the community, and he brings a lot of expertise and entrepreneurial nous to this council, which is much needed. I also wish to just make the remark on the democratic aspect of this. Bingham Town Council, yes, they are town councillors, and I respect the council, which is why the language in that motion is what it is. A lot of those councillors, in fact, all of those councillors are not elected, they're co-opted. So there was no election. In terms of purchasing the land, I absolutely see your point. What I'm proposing is buying it for a nominal fee. Buy it for £1. I don't think, why not? Why not just transfer the land? I don't understand the issue. Maybe that's just I don't work in the public sector and I don't understand how it works, but why not? In terms of the talking shop, what I was referring to there, and I take Councillor Clark's point, I should have perhaps said in the past it's been a talking shop, and I expect it will be. We've had committees, we've had working groups, we've had surveys done 9 years ago, and they were never acted upon. And I just want to close by giving you a reason why this is important. Because as Councillor Reagan said, I was elected in 2022 as a Bingham Town Councillor, and in fact, I think I am actually the most recently elected Bingham Town Councillor, thinking about it. And I won that election because of the car park, because I was the only one talking about it. And frankly, I think I've shown courage today. I totally disagree with Councillor Sims, although I respect his opinion. No one else has had the initiative to bring this. I've exposed all of your opinions, and we're going to have a recorded vote, and I've held you to account, which is my democratic duty. And I've advocated for my residents in Cropwell, many of whom they work and use the amenities in Bingham. So I make no apologies for that. And as I say, this was my plan all along with Bingham Town Council. And I made a promise to the residents in 2022 that I'd try my utmost to get this sorted. And I am doing by bringing this motion today. But I'll close with this story about a widow I met in 2022. She lived half a mile from the town centre. This is 2022. She said she'd not been into Bingham for 3 years. So that was prior to COVID. And the reason she'd not been in is because she couldn't park. And she'd become disabled and she couldn't park. She had to get her niece to drop her at the doctor's. This is why this matters and why I'm so passionate about it, because it has a real impact on people's lives and their quality of life, and it impacts the disabled and the elderly and the most vulnerable the most. And I make no apologies for bringing this motion, and I'm advocating for the people of Bingham and putting some ideas forward, and for the first time we're having a debate tonight, and it's not happened in 10 years. I make no apologies whatsoever. This needs more talking about it, more ideas, more debate, not less. And I really hope I'm wrong. And I hope this doesn't get tied up for years and years like it did in the past. And I hope you deliver what you promise. But if I'm a betting man, I would bet this drags on for years. This is going to drag on for years. I really hope I'm wrong. But on everything I've seen before, this is why I'm bringing the motion. This is why I'm passionate. And I make no apologies.
Okay. A recorded vote has been asked for. So to be totally clear, what you are voting on is what you see before you, and the whole of the motion. Okay, thank you. Gemma will read your names out.
Councillor Barney. Councillor Billing.
Abstain.
Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Bird.
Abstain.
Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Butler.
Against.
Councillor Chaplin.
Against.
Councillor Chewings.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Yes.
Councillor Comberlack.
Against.
Councillor Cotty. Councillor Della. Councillor Edivine.
Against.
Councillor Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Gaunt.
Against.
Councillor Georgiou. Councillor Gowland.
Against.
Councillor Grocott.
Against.
Councillor Inglis.
Against.
Councillor Richard Mallender.
Against.
Councillor Sue Mallender. Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Om. Councillor Perec.
Against.
Councillor Phillips. Councillor Plant. Councillor Polenta. Councillor Regan. Councillor Sims. Councillor Solomon.
Against.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Upton.
Against.
Councillor Verdi.
Against.
Councillor Jane Walker.
Against.
Councillor Rex Walker.
Against.
Councillor Way.
Against.
Councillor Wells.
Against.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
Against.
Councillor Jonathan Wheeler,
Against.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
The notice of motion is lost. Thank you. Moving on to the next next notice of motion. I'd just like to announce that Councillor Cumberlack has notified us that she wishes to make an alteration to the motion using standing order paragraph 4.58. The move to alter the motion does not require a seconder, but it will require the consent of the meeting. So that is the new motion that's on your screen. Just have a quick look at it. Okay.
It's been circulated by email this evening.
Okay. Okay. So do we have a vote?
Yeah, so it's a vote.
So we are going to have a vote on the move, on the change, and that it can be altered. Okay. So do you all agree to alter it? Yep, that's it. Okay, that's carried. Councillor Cumberland, would you
Thank
speak?
you, Madam Mayor. I'm now going to present the updated motion, which you've just seen, and which I believe has been emailed out to you. Water and flooding are becoming increasingly a worry for residents. Hence my application to join the Trent Valley Drainage Board. This is also a concern shared by my fellow councillors, cross-party councillors as well, who also sit on the Drainage Board. We have an extensive programme of housing and therefore need to be certain that any new development, large or small, impacting watercourses and infrastructure, does not alter water flow or inadvertently overload the drainage systems, which in many cases are very old. Currently, minor windfall sites are not commented upon by the water agencies as they're considered too small. However, several small sites can have considerable cumulative impact upon drainage. Sustainable drainage systems, known as SOATs, are designed to manage stormwater as close to its source as possible, to mimic natural drainage and encourage its infiltration and attenuation. In other words, holding back the water until it can be absorbed. In 2024, SOATs should be mandatory for most new construction in England and will require a SOAT-specific authorisation by the SOATs approval body, SAB, prior to construction. Farming practice has become increasingly mechanised. Whilst we need to support our farmers, the impact of modern practice is compounding flooding issues. Removal of trees and hedges means fields are less well protected and there is less water uptake by established trees. The loss of tree cover means dry, friable soil is blown away, leaving often barren soil which cannot absorb water in heavy rainfall. Heavy machinery compacts the soil and breaks the underlying field drains. The practice of no-plough seed drilling means the soil is no longer broken up to absorb excess rainfall. Existing dew ponds in fields have been filled in, removing the natural attenuation. Machinery now cuts and flays hedgerows, leaving the arisings to block ditches. Heavy machinery on verges destroys the grips or channels carrying water from the road to the ditches. Therefore, this council resolves to address these issues by 1. Strengthening consultation with appointed water agencies, the local Lead Flood Authority, Severn Trent, Trent Valley Drainage Board and the Environment Agency, by requesting the Secretary of State ensures they are all statutory planning consultees and formally asks that full and informative comments
on every application impacting water supply and drainage are provided to the planning authority at planning application stage, addressing all potential consequences, particularly in the light of climate change. 2, lobby DEFRA to produce more informed guidance on water attenuation and dispersal and farming practices. Current practice no longer allows for the aeration and soil percolation and leads to destruction of field ponds, hedges and trees, consequently adding to flooding. 3, requesting government to implement Schedule 3 to the Flood and Water Management Act 2010, reviewed by DEFRA in January 2023, making mandatory the appointment of a SUDS approval body by 2024. 4, all requests to be copied to local MPs. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Keeping an eye on the time, I would like to say that if you could we should keep our answers now to 3 minutes and questions and how we respond. Okay? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Wells.
I reserve the right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walker. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gordon.
Do I need to propose we've sent in an amendment to the motion?
Yes, you need to second it.
I need to second what? I need to propose the amendment then, yeah, please. I would like to propose an amendment.
Yeah, you need to say what it is.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that you put it on the screen if that's possible. It's just a small wording change. Got the exact wording, I'll take that. Okay. Basically, I'd like to talk about this, well, once I get a chance. But first of all, the Labour Group are broadly in favour of this motion overall, but feel it needs a small amendment that we've put here to strengthen it so that it's possible for the work to be carried out. I've heard 2 councillors say that I'll be brief in this meeting, and actually they were brief, which was a refreshingly wonderful change, so I'll try and be brief too. When I first got elected onto the borough in 2019, I stood here and asked for the planning application to build 175 homes on floodplain at Wilford Road in Runnington to be removed from the local plan. I then presented a strong argument to the planning committee to have the application refused because it was built on floodplain 2 and 3. It links exactly to this. And again, this was ignored because of the hydrological data at the time that was being discussed was from data which was collected in 2005 and suggested a fairly low risk of flooding in that area. My argument at that meeting focused on exactly the issue mentioned in this motion, that the evidence was based on a lack of any recent data to show the impact of hundreds of new buildings at Sharps Hill Wood, upstream of the Packman Dyke, a stream that runs directly from Wheatcroft Island down into Runnington, and then through the Wilford Road estate. It was extremely concerning for me that there was a lack of any recent testing around the impacts of urbanisation in that catchment area of the dyke, and I was concerned that heavy rain could fill the suds at Edwalton. Subsequent heavy rain would then be jettisoned into the dyke. Concerns were made worse by the plumbing of a huge flood drain directly into that dyke from Sharps Hill Wood, from the suds there, into the Packman Dyke. Again, unfortunately, planning that was ignored because they took the old data. The very next day, the proposed development was a metre below water because the flood did exactly happen. The suds were at the top, the water came down the system and flooded Packman Dyke. Now that development has been built, it's 1.5 metres above the floodplain. They built it up to avoid flooding, but no real impact surveys have been done, modern ones, to look at how that development will affect local houses around. And loads of the residents are terrified that the system is not going to handle when that area floods and all the water that's coming down the system goes around and can't get out. Obviously, the people in those new houses are protected, but everyone else isn't. So it's very worrying. So, of course, we're in favour of looking at the impacts of development on flooding. We're also interested in farming techniques, and modern farming techniques are causing significant problems when it's done badly.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, right, okay. Unfortunately, the motion isn't strong enough. It's impossible to achieve these things without funding because you're asking so many things to be done by the local authorities and local stakeholders. It's very difficult to see, apart from Severn Trent, anyone having enough money to do that because it'd be huge. So we're requesting that little line putting in
just to ask for that this can be funded, because otherwise you're asking for something too huge. I thought I'd have longer than you've given me, but
Sorry, you're 3 minutes.
overall we
is
support
that-
the motion, but we'd ask for this little change just to give it some teeth,
Okay.
so that actually we can get funding to actually do this properly and mitigate these real serious issues. Thank you for listening. I hope I got my message across in the short time.
Councillor Walker, you're seconding.
Councillor Gaunt, switch off.
Okay.
Yes, I'm seconding, but can I reserve my right to speak?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cumberland, do you accept the amendment?
No, and I will explain later if it's debated.
Okay.
Right, anybody want to speak on the amendment?
Anybody wish to speak to the amendment that's before you?
Councillor Thomas.
Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Gowland.
It's just a question, a point of clarification, really. This wording on the screen doesn't match the wording on the agenda in ways other than the amendment that we're discussing. The last couple of lines have got extra words added.
Okay. Is that towards the end? I've got it here.
Councillor Thomas, which bit are you referring to, please?
We got
On the agenda, it says every application impacting water supply and drainage are provided to the planning authority, addressing all potential consequences. So there are additional words on the screen that aren't in the motion on the agenda.
just one moment.
Where's that come from? I don't know.
So where's it come from?
It comes from there, the agenda, the original agenda.
Yeah, we're looking at the original agenda. We're looking at
On
that.
the last page.
Okay, it's got to be as it was published.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's strike that wording out.
Okay.
We're gonna have to go for another half an hour.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anyway, whatever.
Councillors, this is the altered motion that you
voted to accept for debate. Okay, so that is slightly different to what was on the council agenda. You've accepted paragraph 3, but there is also, as Councillor Thomas has highlighted, an extra line at the end of paragraph 1, particularly in the light of climate change, which wasn't on the published agenda. But you have voted to accept this as an altered motion.
On the one at that then.
Helen, can you move to the amendment, please, that's been proposed by Councillor Bourne? Yes.
Particularly in the light of climate change.
Yeah, so the amendment is to add in the words that they are fully funded to fulfil the role of statutory consultees. So that's now been proposed and seconded. Councillor Cumberlack has said she's not accepting that as an amendment. So we're on to a debate on that amendment before we vote on the amendment. Thank you. I think the extra words are actually quite useful. We have a Conservative government which is attempting to get to 2050 net zero with no plan to how to get there. Please, Conservative group, don't follow that path by going down the path of proposing a motion which we can't achieve. I have been on the Trent Valley Drainage Board. It's a very small organisation run on a shoestring. It cannot do this without resources. We're only asking for a small change, well, small change, small but meaningful change, to actually provide funding from the Secretary of State so that these organisations can actually do what we're asking them to do. Otherwise, it's a bit like the Bingham motion. We're asking for things to be done that can't be done. Okay. Anyone else wants to be
Did you want to speak, Councillor Giorgio? No? No? Okay. Have to be careful when you twitch.
Jen reserved her right to respond.
Yes. So now we are going back to Councillor Walker,
and then Councillor Gaunt,
who reserved the right to speak. And then we will go to Councillor Gaunt if there's nobody else to speak on the amendment that you see before you. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's pretty much been made, the point that without the funding, this kind of becomes slightly meaningless, this notion. So, yeah, that's kind of the point of it. But thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gaunt, you're speaking to the amendment.
Yeah, I will speak
and then
if I
we'll
can.
have a
But
vote.
I thought if we were debating it, Councillor Cumberlack wanted to say something. I was just wondering if that was true before I speak, because otherwise it's closed and you wanted to say something, didn't you? If it was debated, he said. Is that true? Because I got the impression you said you would like to talk if we were debating it. Yeah. So would you like to speak? All right.
Councillor Cumberlack?
Yes. 2 reasons for rejecting the amendment is there are certain consultees who should be consultees and should be statutory consultees. We don't engage with those consultees at the moment, and we need to engage with those consultees. But to introduce funding into that request at the moment would detract from the thrust of that motion. I'd also say that when I've spoken about item 3, following the January review and Schedule 3, which is yet to be implemented, according to the guidance for government departments, a SAB running costs would be part of the application process. The developer will then pay an application inspection fee, which will provide a means of funding the SAB's operational costs. This would be expected to result in a net zero cost to the local authority. But like I say, I don't want to start going off down that route at the moment because you are altering the thrust of the motion. The motion is to get the Secretary of State to acknowledge that these consultees should be statutory. We already have them, but we don't acknowledge them as being statutory.
Councillor Gaunt, do you want to?
I'll just say, well, fair enough. Yeah, we appreciate that. I appreciate where you're going with the thrust of it. I just want to say that we do feel that this will end up being something that isn't achievable without funding. So obviously we'd like the amendments. It doesn't sound like that's going to stand. Going forward, it'd be good if we did bring something else back then to request funding, because I don't see how this can be achieved. I understand the SUDS thing, that's brilliant, great, that will be funded, superb. Going forward, because obviously SUDS are a kind of a good idea as long as they're maintained properly, etc., etc. So yeah, appreciate what you're saying. Still think we should amend it. Obviously not going to accept that, but there we are. Thank you.
Okay, right. Now then, I think we've sorted that out. And we now go to the vote on the amendment that you see up there. Okay. All those in favour of the amendment? Okay. Okay. Against? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you. The amendment is lost. So we're now back to the motion, to the substantive motion. And any other people? Yep. Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Malinder.
Thank you. We support the aspirations of this motion, but in our view, it does not go far enough. The water industry was privatised in 1989 by a Conservative government. The predictable consequences have been building up ever since and are now coming to a head. These privately owned monopolies amass huge profits for shareholders and pay enormous salaries to their chief staff. Many of the problems Councillor Cumberland describes are a direct result of their taking customer payments for 34 years for profit rather than investing in the country's water infrastructure. We should urgently be calling on the government to renationalise the water companies. Forcing all these bodies to respond to all planning applications will not change much. At best, Severn Trent Water will send in their standard reply that says they will respond to any impact on the sewerage and drainage system, which they don't do, of course, certainly not in any reasonable timescale. The others will also continue to return their standing advice, even when greater consideration of a particular application should take place. As planning authority, Rushcliffe should be more proactive at seeking informed individual responses where needed. And we should all be playing our part as ward members to request this for applications where we know there is an existing problem or where a cumulative impact is building up. Another future problem is brewing in the new housing estates. Who checks that the drainage ponds are built according to the plans and functioning to specification? After completion, these drainage ponds then become the responsibility of unregulated estate management companies rather than any public agency. As these fail through lack of maintenance or old age, any costs for repair or replacement will be carried by the residents of the estate on top of the water bills that they pay like everyone else. Councillor Cumberland's action point on this is welcomed, but will have no effect for many years while the government belatedly implements Schedule 3, and even then it will not apply retrospectively. In the meantime, every new development adds to the problem. At the same time, it's highly unlikely that any Conservative government will take on the increasingly industrialised farming industry, now freed from any regulating influence from the EU, along with their subsidies.
Okay, you have 30 seconds.
However, we support the motion.
Well, the last few are important. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Oh, Councillor Thomas, can you switch?
Could I propose, because the meeting is fast coming towards 10 o'clock, can I propose that we extend as per standing orders, we extend it to 10:30.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, that's it. Don't have to have a vote.
Yeah, we do.
We do? No. Okay, so now we have to have a vote. Do you wish to have it extended? All for an extension? I think that that's carried. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay, where were we? Councillor Chewings, you wish to speak on the substantive motion?
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment, please. I've submitted it to the monitoring officer in advance of this meeting. Can we place it on the screen, please?
Okay.
Thank you. I'll be short. It's been long enough tonight. So I thank Councillor Comeback for today's motion. Flooding is such an important issue that can destroy, in its worst terms, houses, livelihoods, and in extreme cases even takes lives. Rushcliffe has been blighted with localised flooding in the past years, something which appears to become more and more frequent in times to come, which I'd like to see the comment there of climate change and recognising that. Our MP, Ruth Edwards, for the majority of Rushcliffe, I appreciate the Bingham area is not under Ruth, carried out a report into Storm Dennis 2019 to 2020, and that was published in 2020. And that looked at many areas of Rushcliffe: Bunny, Colston Bassett, Costock, Cropple, Butler, Eastleek, Gotham, Normanton and Saw. Glad you're pleased there, Rex. There's a nice photo of you in that report as well. Normanton and Saw, Frumpton and Tolton. The report made many recommendations and a promise for future updates on progress. However, I noticed from Ms Edwards' website there's been updates since February 2021. Now, we can't say if nothing's been done or just not been reported back. What's important is that we ask what has been done. We don't want to duplicate work. We should look forward. Noticing in that report, there is a step. The first step was to actually engage with Rushcliffe Borough Council into what extra powers we need with regards to development, which I think actually embodies part of this motion. So for me, it's important that we amend the motion with point 4 to ask Ruth Edwards MP for a report back on that, so we can then use that information to move forward for the will and the good of the residents of Rushcliffe. So I propose that amendment. I hope for speed, Council Comeback can accept it.
Okay.
In its entirety.
First of all, I just have to say, have you a seconder?
Yes, I second it and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Right, I turn to Councillor Cumberland. Do you wish to accept the amendment?
If it's debated.
Okay.
Right, so
Thank you.
Any debate on the amendment?
So we now need a debate on the amendment.
Anybody wants to?
If anybody wants to. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, basically, the asking Ruth Edwards MP for an update is fair enough, but you don't need it to be in this motion to do that. I'm sure residents, of which Councillor Chewings is one, can contact his MP to ask for an update. And the whole point of the point I'm making is that by putting this in, again, deflects from the focus of the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anybody else wish to speak on the amendment? Yes, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you. Again, just like to echo what Councillor Clark has just said. May well be a worthy ask, but it doesn't really add anything to the motion that we are here to debate, or the original motion. But also, I've just had a quick look and looked up the storm report, and there actually is an update on there from the MP already, which was put in February 2021, which actually gives quite a bit of detail of the additional work that she's already done on this matter. Thank you.
I did state that the last update was February 2021. There's nothing since that point, so I made that statement already.
Right. Okay. Anybody else wish to say? Councillor?
I did just say
Cumberland.
I'd explain. I think everybody else has done it for me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Birch, you reserved your right to speak as seconder. You can speak now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly, I'd like to just endorse the motion. Obviously, that report dealt with Crockwell Butler, which has been impacted very badly with flooding for a number of reasons. So I think this should be added to the amendments. It improves the amendment, and I support it.
Councillor Chewings, do you wish to make any further comment on your amendment before we go to a vote?
But very quickly, we're asking for our elected MP to report back on a report that she made in 2020, was published in 2020, where it specifically mentions working with Rushcliffe Borough Council. Now, I'm not aware of any work that's taken place. There's been certainly no reports back on that work, and that was the first step for that report. It is such an important issue. Should we not, as a council, be asking what work you've done? Should we not be then implementing it into the work that we do through planning? And she makes specifically mention of planning, which is a responsibility of this council. Now, I can only assume that maybe we don't want to ask this question, or certain individuals don't want to ask this question, because they don't want to hold our MP to account. So you have a decision today. Do you want to hold our MP to account and have that information come forth today as a result of a letter from this council, or do we want to let it go into the ether and be ignored? You have a clear choice. I move this motion or amendment to the motion, and I ask everyone to vote in favour of it.
Councillor Mallender?
No, I didn't indicate that I wanted to speak on the amendment.
Oh, right. Okay. That's it. That's okay. Right. Well, we'll go on to the vote then.
I request a recorded vote, please.
Right. We go to a recorded vote on the amendment.
Councillor Barney. Councillor Billing. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Bird. Councillor Brennan. Against. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Butler.
Against.
Councillor Chaplin. For. Councillor Chewings.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Comblack.
Against.
Councillor Cotty.
Against.
Councillor Della. Councillor Edivine.
Against.
Councillor Ellis. Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Gaunt.
For.
Councillor Georgiou. Councillor Gowland.
For.
Councillor Grocott.
For.
Councillor Inglis.
Against.
Councillor Mallender. Councillor Sue Mallender, sorry. Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Om. Councillor Perec.
Against.
Councillor Phillips. Councillor Plant. Councillor Polenta. Councillor Regan. Councillor Sims. Councillor Solomon.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
Abstain.
Councillor Upton.
Against.
Councillor Verdi.
Against.
Councillor Jen Walker.
For.
Councillor Rex Walker. Councillor Way.
Against.
Councillor Wells.
Against.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
Against.
Councillor Jonathan Wheeler. Councillor Williams.
Against.
Okay, thank you. The amendment is lost. Now, we go back again to the substantive motion. Councillor Richard Mallender, you wanted to...
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we've booked the extension, so I'll just keep going for quite a while.
Keep going.
No, don't worry.
3
Don't
minutes.
worry. Okay. Firstly, I think that this is quite a good motion. I get the strength of debate. I can see where the amendments have been coming from. Would have been happy to support it with the First Amendment as well, but you know, there we go. I completely agree with what Councillor Thomas was saying earlier about the parlor state of the water industry in this country. It is a mess. It needs sorting out. That has to be dealt with at national levels. But we can do at least this, and I think it's worth strengthening our consultation with the water agencies. I fear that Councillor Thomas again is quite right. They will ignore us completely because they aren't really bothered in saying anything other than, yes, build lots of houses. Yes, build on this area. It's going to be absolutely fine. They practically have a statutory duty to say, yes, whatever you want to build anywhere, our sewer system can deal with it. Our water courses can deal with it. And in many cases, they can't. And we know that, whether the development might be in Ed Walton or Bingham or West Bridgeford or East Leek. We see it time after time, not just in this council, but elsewhere as well. So putting this motion forward, I fear it won't have a great deal of effect, but we've got to keep doing it. We've got to keep poking away at government, poking away at DEFRA, try and make a difference for our residents. My screen has rotated in an annoying way. I do think that the idea of consultation the appointment of a SUDS approval body is a very, very good one. Not just, I think that the idea of bringing in stable urban drainage is a great idea, not just for the new estates. It's something that I think that we should be looking at retrofitting to our existing estates and our existing built-up area around Rushcliffe. There is some work that's being carried out in Mansfield, I believe, by Severn Trent, where they are effectively retrofitting what they call rain gardens to existing urban areas. It's something that we should be looking at for West Bridgeford and the existing larger villages, so that we can mitigate the flooding,
30 seconds
that
left.
occurs in many areas where our residents are badly affected by this now. So I fear it won't do an awful lot, but I think it's a step in the right direction. So we'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wells on the substantive, on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've listened to all the councillors this evening, so I will be brief. I think the planning committee, the officers should be taking a lot more consideration over the topography of the land, i.e. that they dug footings one day, the next day they were flooded. So they had to come along, pump them out, and then a flurry of planning applications went in to hire the land so they didn't flood again. So in the end, certain houses now have 3-meter walls. So the topography of the land is very important. I did have a large speech, but as for the time, I think we should move on, and I move this motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cumberland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for the debate. I think we've heard some very interesting comments, and hopefully we will all be taking some of those forward. This is a very important motion, given the growing rise in climatic events. And I agree the poor state of water management in this country. It is high time that the government and authority-appointed agencies provided planning authorities with detailed and informed comment. Flood risk due to climate, increasingly industrialised farming practices and development which has not been fully considered are having untold consequences. We as a council have to protect our residents and do all we can. That's what this is about. I therefore hope you will be supporting me in this motion. Flooding not only affects developments, but impacts you and me, all residents of Rushcliffe. Can I please ask for a recorded vote?
Okay. Right. We are now going to another recorded vote. I'm smiling. Okay. But this is on the substantive motion. No amendments, no nothing, as it is. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Barney. Councillor Billing. Councillor Birch.
4.
Councillor Bird.
4.
Councillor Brennan.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Butler.
4.
Councillor Chaplin.
4.
Councillor Chewings.
4.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Cumberlack.
4.
Councillor Cotty.
4.
Councillor Della. Councillor Edybean. Councillor Ellis. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Gaunt.
4.
Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Gowland.
4.
Councillor Grocott.
4.
Councillor Inglis.
4.
Councillor Richard Mallender.
4.
Councillor Sue Mallender. Councillor Mason. Councillor Matthews.
4. 4.
4. Phillips. Councillor Plant. Councillor Polenta. Councillor Regan. Councillor Sims. Councillor Solomon.
4.
Councillor Thomas. 4. Councillor Upton.
4.
Councillor Verdi.
4.
Councillor Jen Walker.
4.
Councillor Rex Walker.
4.
Councillor Way.
4.
Councillor Wells.
4.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Jonathan Wheeler. Councillor Williams.
4.
It's unanimous.
The motion is carried. Thank you. Right. Now we go on to questions from you councillors. To answer questions submitted by councillors under standing order, paragraph 4.33. So I would like to invite Councillor Thomas, please, to put her question
Thank
to
you, Madam
Councillor
Mayor.
Verdi.
Please provide breakdown of expenditure and income for Rushcliffe Run events in the past year, including West Bridgeford's Christmas Lights, Proms, Lark in the Park, Taste of Rushcliffe, Cinema, Remembrance, Armed Forces Day, Civic Services, etc., including identification of any grant funding and recharge to the West Bridgeford special expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And before I start, I suppose I should acknowledge the precedent that's been set by councillors this evening, which is I will be brief. I will be very brief. In fact, so much so that I've got the answer prepared for Councillor Thomas. You've asked for a breakdown of a number of events, and due to the detailed nature of your request, we have provided a handout which provides the relevant details, and this is being shared with councillors at the moment. When this does land on your desk, you will see that this shows that for a number of excellent events, there is a net direct cost of some 39 or 40,000 pounds. I said I would be brief, and I am very brief, and the answer is within the table that's been provided.
Thank you.
I do, Madam Mayor, yes. Is providing a free outdoor cinema in an affluent area of the country a reasonable use of public funds allocated to the so-called Levelling Up Fund, given the state of our hospitals and schools and the hardships being endured by many families. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Thomas. I think if you look at the table and the various events which are outlined there, many of these are borough-wide, and they are about enabling our residents across Rushcliffe to engage and take part in these events. And aside the costs, I would like to actually share with you that for those events which are listed there, just to give you a flavour, for example, Proms in the Park, there were some 8,000 attendees over some 4 or 5 hours, and the others similarly again between £2,500 to £7,000 with a number of hours spent at these events. So I think in terms of the specific one that you've highlighted, I'm pleased that you have, because the cinema event is not included as part of our cost because it is funded from the UK SPF, some £8,000.
She's done that, so we're going. Councillor Grocott, would you like to put your question to Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And indeed, I'd like to thank Councillor Jonathan Wheeler for his prompt and positive support in confirming to me that the council continues to ban live animals being awarded as prizes at events on council land. It's in line with the national RSPCA campaign. Will the council provide evidence to the RSPCA, perhaps the record of this meeting, that we have such a ban in place and can be added to their list of councils that support their ban to ban this support their campaign to ban this inhumane practice?
Yep, thank you, Councillor Grocott, for your question and for the constructive manner you went about this, and to reach out this summer so we could have a discussion about what our policy was and to just the best way forwards. Absolutely agree. We're more happy to contact the RSPCA. I had a quick look on their website and didn't have the breakdown of councils. I'm not sure that's somewhere else, but it might be because we've had this in place for many years, way before their campaign started, I believe, because in our booking terms and conditions, people aren't aware when anyone wants to come and hire any room on our land or any of our leisure centres or our arenas. It's absolutely in the terms and conditions when they book, and they cannot give away live animal surprises. So I'm really proud of that we have that in place, and absolutely that will be remaining there. And to say, we will contact our RSPCA and ask them to update the records if they haven't already. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Have you a supplementary question?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Additionally, given our town and parish council partners own and manage a number of parks, playing fields and open spaces in the borough, should we also encourage their adoption of this ban where they don't have it in place, perhaps at the forthcoming Town and Parish Forum on 10th November at the Bingham Arena, so we can fully eradicate this practice in Rushcliffe?
Absolutely agree with you that we should work in a partnership with our town and parish councils to ensure this practice is banned if they so wish to do so. Obviously, I hope they do. Obviously, it's a matter for the individual councils. So what we're going to do is do one better, because obviously, unfortunately, town and parish forums, not every town and parish council are unfortunately represented, which is a shame. I wish they all were. So we have a newsletter that goes out to our town and parishes, similar to Council Connection. We get a newsletter that goes out to our residents. So we're going to make sure it's included in the next update there. So that it's available for all town and parish councils to see. And I also encourage all councillors who are on the town and parish council or attend one to raise at the clerks and the chairman. We've got the full information about what we do. It was actually in our council connection that came out, I believe, July or August time. So the information's there. Wanting more, get in contact and have that conversation with them. Because what I imagine is many of them probably don't realise they haven't got it in the terms and conditions. And if they go back over it, they'll probably update it. So hopefully we can have it all in place and run throughout the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Grocott again.
Me again, sorry, I'll be quick.
This time to Councillor Inglis.
Thanks. So the Prime Minister sort of pulled the rug from under me with this confusing statement yesterday, which I'm sure has dismayed the members opposite, who are, of course, very committed to the environmental agenda. But given the fact that national legislation will soon require local authorities to collect and recycle food waste separately from general waste and recycling, should Rushcliffe Borough Council implement a similar pilot to the one currently being delivered by Nottingham City Council and undertake a food waste collection trial in a ward within the borough?
Councillor Inglis. Oh.
Yes, thank you. Well, as the top recycling authority in the county, Rushcliffe is very proud of delivering a top quality waste collection service for its local residents. The idea of a pilot was previously raised at full council in December 2022. It was explained at the time the council was unilaterally implement a food waste collection scheme, even as a pilot, will be premature, unwise and unaffordable. Importantly, the council has continued to work together on an externally funded project through the Nottingham Joint Waste Management Committee, which has developed a model for how food waste could be collected and disposed of. It will ensure that the council and indeed the whole county are in a very good place to implement the weekly food waste collection service once the government confirms requirements and funding arrangements for local authorities to deliver such a service. It is widely acknowledged by DEFRA that there have been slippages to the planned programme. However, the council, through the Joint Waste Management Committee, are continuing to press for clarity to be provided as soon as possible. So in the meantime, the council has secured a range of discounted deals. And these can be found on the recycling page of the council's website. And as we say, soon. Thank you.
Okay, yes or no? No, we're all right without. Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams, you have a question for Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the decision at Cabinet last week to move forward with a detailed strategic working group to address parking issues in Bingham, could the leader please give an update on how this will progress?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, obviously in the light of earlier debate this evening, part of this has been answered, but it does give me the opportunity to really reiterate that now that the Cabinet has made that decision last week to form that working group, really pleased that it's been created, and it will be meeting in the next 2 or 3 weeks where all parties will be involved, all stakeholders, so the 3 levels of council, the transport from the county, the borough and the town council, all represented. And the most important thing is that part of the process will be to consider options. We won't be limiting it to any one particular option. We will look to see what is best, what is holistic, so that all options can be considered. And we'll be asking in due course during that operation. Also, we'll be asking for local opinion as well. But the process, as far as I'm concerned, will be extraordinarily important. And while I'm involved with it, it will be driven forward, and it will not be any form of talking shop, which somebody might try and suggest. And not only will be the first meeting in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but I hope that we then follow that up with further meetings in short order, not a long time hence. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Have you a supplementary question? No, thank you. Councillor Bird, would you like to put your question, please, to Councillor Clark?
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark's actually pretty much answered it already, but my question is, would the leader of the council confirm that Rushcliffe Borough Council will continue to work with Bingham Town Council to improve the car parking provision in Bingham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, yeah, obviously the answer is yes, but it does give me the opportunity to thank Bingham Town Council for now engaging with us and allowing us to engage with them. It's a two-way street, very much a two-way conversation. And then if you include the county council, it's a 3-way conversation. But in terms of the particular question, absolutely vital that we work closely together with the town council to ensure that that local opinion is included, and that we make sure that, as I just indicated in the previous question, that all possible options are looked at and considered, and in the widest sense, because I'm sure that at some stage we'll be also considering things like traffic as well. So absolutely, I'm delighted that all three levels, I think as far as I'm concerned, for the first time, are now all rowing in the same direction. So I look forward to working closely with the Town Council.
Have you a supplementary question? No? Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes the business for this evening. Thank you very much for attending, and see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.